There are three types of madmen you'll see on the battlefield. Those who have completely lost their minds, seeking only death. Those who are consumed by hatred, blind to everything around them. And then, Ian, the mysterious young man, began to chant incredibly bizarre words. Seeing this, Mason exclaimed in confusion, "What? What is he mumbling about?" Logan, standing nearby, suddenly yelled in frustration, "Move! Get out of the way!" I said move. However, Ian paid them no mind and continued. Logan immediately raised his crossbow, his face full of resentment, and muttered, "This bastard." Suddenly, in the blink of an eye, Ian tore the scroll in his hands in half. Out of nowhere, a beam of light descended from the sky. Both Mason and Logan shouted in unison, "What the hell is that?" "Lightning." And then, a bolt of lightning struck right where they were standing. Both Logan and Mason were blown away by the lightning strike, screaming in agony. "Help!" Charging straight in without armor or a shield. "I'm really curious about your true identity." "A crazy mage. My name is Risuki Kadoyama. The very moment I received my college acceptance letter." Suddenly, a truck barreled straight toward me. Instant death. Life is a total bitch, I thought to myself. Just when I thought my college life was finally about to start, I end up dying like a dog in a place like this. But when I opened my eyes, I had reincarnated as Ian, the son of a peasant. Right now, both Rover and Joanna cried out in shock. Unbelievable. Black hair. My family, peasants of the empire, were dirt poor. While my parents and two older brothers were out working all day, my little sister and I could only wander around looking for food. Standing not too far away, a few other kids loudly mocked him. "Look at the crow. So gross." Ian, sitting there eating grilled fish, glanced at them and thought deeply, "Those brats. It's not like I wanted to be born with black hair. The damn Middle Ages. I got reincarnated, and I still have to live in poverty like this?" Suddenly, something popped up, catching his attention. "Is this my status window?" The panel displayed the information, Ian Javan. The system announced, "You are nameless." Hearing that, he froze, only able to curse his fate. Damn it. Even with a status window, there's nothing I can do. Even if I bust my ass working every day, it'll just be a life of debt with nothing to show for it. Inheriting this life from my parents, I don't even dare to dream of any profession other than farming. I never had the chance to learn anything else either. I believe that if I just had an education, I could be good at anything. I wonder if there's any place that would take me in. However, Ian's train of thought was interrupted by Michelle's wide, round eyes. She looked at him, pointing at her own little drooling mouth. Ian quickly took out another grilled fish and handed it to her. "Eat this too," he said. Michelle happily took it. "Thank you, brother." Then, she excitedly told him, "Let's go get dessert." He enthusiastically agreed. "Let's go." A while later, in another part of the forest, Ian reminded Michelle, "Don't go too far, okay?" Michelle gave a slight nod, completely focused on munching her wild berries. He looked at her and smiled softly, thinking, "It feels like I just taught her about dessert not too long ago. She's growing up so fast." Right then, a noise nearby caught Ian's attention. He noticed a massive dark shadow lurking in the bushes nearby. Seeing this, Ian cautiously approached to get a better look. The next second, he screamed in terror when he realized what it was. It was a massive bear that suddenly appeared with bloodshot eyes. It roared fiercely right in front of Ian and Michelle. In a flash, it raised its razor-sharp claws, aiming straight at the two kids. Ian immediately pulled Michelle into a tight embrace, frantically backing away in panic. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning struck the bear out of nowhere. The bear's entire body was instantly charred black. It finally collapsed to the ground right before the two children's eyes. Just then, Ian heard a voice ring out. "Oh my, I might have overdone it a bit." "Hello there, kiddo." The person greeted Ian warmly. "Is this the Felis territory?" Ian was a bit wary of the person in front of him. He stammered, "Why yes, it is." But in his mind, he was thinking, did this person take down that bear? Who is she? The stranger introduced herself. "I am Reddit, a wandering mage." Ian said in awe, "A mage. Those are the mighty beings that appear on the battlefield, wielding exquisite skills and terrifying destructive power. Why would someone like that be in a remote town like this?" Reddit spoke up. "I'm looking for a black-haired boy living in this town. Is there anyone else with black hair besides you? Ian immediately replied, No, it's just me. She looked him up and down and said, Well then, it seems I've found the right person. Ian felt a bit doubtful. He looked at her and asked, Me? At that moment, Eredit recalled the words someone had once told her. Find a black-haired boy in the Felis territory. If you take him as your disciple, good things will happen. And then she thought to herself, eyes full of curiosity mixed with fear, a lively and adorable aura. So I just need to take this kid in as my disciple. Thinking that, Eredit laughed out loud and said, Honestly, that's space-time mage. Ian frowned, thinking, I heard mages are all terrifying weirdos, but this person is actually really nice. That magic earlier, its power was terrifying. She obliterated that bear with a single strike. Seeing this, he directly asked Eredit, Mage, can I ask you something? She replied, What is it? He said, About the magic you used on that bear just now. Eredit stepped closer to him. She thought for a moment, then said excitedly, It seems you have an interest in magic. He replied, I've heard that magic is terrifying, but seeing it with my own eyes, it's truly miraculous. Eredit quickly responded, It's nothing special. As long as you study, you can do it easily too. After all, anyone can master magic. Hearing this, Ian's cheeks gradually flushed red. He muttered shyly, Anyone? Then, can I learn magic too? Eredit revealed a bright smile. She looked straight into Ian's eyes, then reached out and ruffled his hair, saying, Of course. As long as you meet a good master, it's entirely possible. You can become a mage too, Ian. If you want, I can teach you magic. As she spoke, Eredit extended her hand toward Ian. So, do you want to become my disciple? Ian looked at the person in front of him, lost in thought. This could be my chance to change my life. Because it means a path other than farming has opened up. He decisively grabbed Eredit's hand and declared boldly, Yes, please instruct me. The next day, morning in Ian's village. Suddenly, a massive book slammed onto the table right in front of Ian. Eredit spoke loudly, reminding him, The most fundamental foundations of magic lie in the Moronius language. Earlier, Rover had told both Eredit and Ian, I understand. Please be careful. Have a safe journey. Even the Lord had nodded in approval. Thinking about it, Eredit sighed in relief and exclaimed, It was hard enough getting permission from your parents and the Lord. You must put in your utmost effort. Ian slammed his hand on the table and firmly declared, I'm ready. She asked him once more, All right, shall we begin? He immediately replied, Yes. Moronius language, 1% in progress. Moronius language, 27% in progress. By this time, Ian had started to babble a few words. Moronius language, 53% in progress. By then, Ian had read quite a few books, and his pronunciation of the language had become much more fluent. Later, the system announced, Moronius language, 99% in progress. And finally, Moronius language, 100% complete. Can fluently use the official magical language of the Grand Mages. 7 years later, Ian gently closed the book. Eredit stood beside him, smiling as she said, That concludes the theoretical studies. We're moving on to the next step. Ian, now much more mature, smiled back at her. Yes. Ian, Eredit Raven. Magic compliance. Magic language skill. Can use magic language. A while later, in a majestic mountainous area, surrounded by endless clouds, Ian was suddenly free-falling from the sky. He screamed his lungs out, yelling, Hey, Master, you're moving way too fast. For the past 6 years, I've only studied the Moronius language. Under the blazing summer sun, Ian's youthful voice echoed out, Help me. Seeing this, Eredit shouted her instructions. Listen to the voice. Ian panicked and blurted out, The voice. He looked around and thought to himself, What am I supposed to listen to in a place like this? I can only hear the wind. Suddenly, he heard a few voices whispering in his ear. Human. It's a human. He's flying. He's just like us, right? Ian thought in awe. This is the Moronius language. The system then displayed his status, acquired a new skill. Wind magic skill. Can use wind magic. A few hours later, Ian's curious voice rang out. The mysteries of nature. Eredit chuckled and replied, That's right. You look absolutely ridiculous right now. He replied helplessly, Yeah, yeah, laugh all you want. Eredit continued to instruct him. Mages communicate with the mysteries of nature to borrow their power. That is magic, Ian muttered with a serious face. Magic. And then Eredit shouted loudly. Now that you can hear the voice of the wind, next you must listen to the other mystical voices. Ian excitedly responded, Yes, leave it to me. Eredit yelled, First is water magic. In the blink of an eye, Ian was pushed into the sea. He had to struggle in the water while a voice cursed in his ear. You're dirtying the water. Get out of here. He really wanted to retort, but couldn't form the words, only letting out muffled sounds. A silent exchange. After he finished, Eredit guided him again. Next is ice magic. In the freezing weather, with snow falling continuously, Ian sat inside a barrel, shivering from the cold. In his ear, he heard a voice, Human, your body is getting cold. As soon as he conquered the next power, Eredit praised Ian. Not bad, Ian. You grasped them quickly. He didn't even have the strength to reply. Then, she snapped her fingers and shouted, All right. Next is, suddenly, a massive flame erupted right in front of Ian's eyes. He panicked and screamed, Master! The flames saw him and yelled in surprise. What's this? There's a human here. I wonder if it's okay to burn him. Hearing this, Ian was terrified and screamed, Help! In the blink of an eye, the scene shifted to the inside of a dark cave. Ian held a torch in his hand, sighing heavily as he complained, Earth magic. Is this the last one? The cave then spoke. Therefore, that which flows cannot be called flowing just because it does not move. Ian didn't seem to understand. He tried to reassure himself. What is it talking about? What kind of cosmic theory is that? Maybe I just don't have a talent for earth magic. Or maybe I need to accumulate more experience from other training sessions. Ian saw the system and gasped in surprise. Oh, it's the skill tree. On it appeared the text, bonus skill points awarded. Points can be used to increase magic proficiency. Current points, 100. Ian revealed a sly smile and muttered, As expected, I really am a cheater in this world. Well then, let's just level up earth magic. Because I have no idea what it's talking about. Instantly, the system flashed a beam of light right in front of Ian. The cave spoke, Puny human. Beneath this place, lava flows. Be careful. If an earthquake occurs, it will erupt. Ian said softly. So this is earth magic. All right. I need to get out of here quickly and tell Master that I've heard the voice of the earth. Fire burn. In just a split second, the torch in Ian's hand flared up brightly. However, at that moment, another voice spoke up, catching his attention. I hate the light. Ian looked around in panic and shouted, Who's there? Is it the earth? The voice replied, No. I am the darkness. By nightfall, the moon had reached its peak, and the clouds drifted lazily by. Eredit sat at the cave entrance, pondering, I have to attend the upcoming Fire Mage conference. Suddenly, Ian ran out of the cave, shouting at the top of his lungs, Master. Eredit looked him over. She jumped down from the rock and exclaimed, You succeeded. Ian obediently replied, Yes. I even learned dark magic, from the darkness. Eredit was stunned for a moment. What? She thought to herself. Are you saying you heard the voice of that cowardly darkness? Ian noticed she was just staring at him without saying a word. He quickly asked, Master, are you okay? Eredit replied, Ian. Yes. It's time for us to head down the mountain. Ian nodded and asked, Yes. Where are we going? However, Eredit said, That's not what I meant. I mean we should part ways here. Go to Chrono Lu and attend the Space-Time Mage Conference. If you truly have the destiny to wield space-time magic, you will meet a space-time mage there. Ian was confused and asked her, Why space-time magic all of a sudden? Even so, Eredit just laughed and ruffled his hair without saying anything else. She smiled and thought, Ian has an innate talent for the mysteries. If my intuition is right, Ian can definitely grasp the power of time as well. Well then, let's meet again in Dran in 3 years. A few days later, clear voices rang out in the late afternoon at a certain village. Cheap goods here. Very cheap. Come take a look. All the good stuff is right here. Ian navigated through the bustling crowd, thinking to himself, the Space-Time Mage Conference, huh? She really is an unpredictable person. Everything happened so suddenly. Up ahead, a man was loudly calling out, Anyone heading north? Let me tag along. Ian thought to himself. She did say the Space-Time Mage Conference is held in the north. I'm free anyway, so I might as well try heading there for now. Ian and Caleb's group sat around the campfire resting. The man next to him turned his head with a questioning look. Hey kid, is this your first time heading north? Hearing that, he turned to look. Yes. Something came up unexpectedly. The man raised a hand. He asked in a low voice, then you probably haven't heard about Dragon Mountain either. Ian thought of the phantom image of the giant dragon and asked doubtfully, Dragon Mountain? Rick's voice rang out affirmatively. In this mountain range. He remembered that massive figure and couldn't help but add, there really is a Drake. Then, acting overly friendly, he asked Ian, do you know how to fight? Or at least, can you run fast? Ian frowned, looking troubled. I'm not very confident in either. Why is he suddenly being so overly friendly? Hearing that, the man immediately pulled his hand back, asking in annoyance, what? Seriously? How useless. What's your profession? Ian scratched his head and replied shyly, I'm a mage. The man's face filled with shock as he jumped up and backed away quite a distance. A mage? What did you say? He couldn't believe it and quickly confirmed, are you serious? Ian pressed his lips together and affirmed, yes. Lucy was startled and glanced sideways to check. Caleb, holding a cup of water, gasped in shock, a mage. Owen also yelled with a face full of astonishment, him? Seeing this, Ian asked in confusion, is there a problem? In his mind, he couldn't help but wonder, what's with this atmosphere? Rick quickly snatched the cup of water from Ian's hand and said flatteringly, it's nothing. Here, let me get you some more. Ian's eyes widened as he stammered, no, I'm fine. Ian stared blankly at the man's back as he ran off hugging the cup, calling out, here. He froze when he heard a mocking laugh behind him. That thing is a mage? Owen sneered disdainfully, ridiculous. Caleb also laughed loudly, chiming in, looking that weak? Rick smirked, raising a hand noisily. If that's the case, then every stray dog around here is a mage too. Ian looked at the guy, wondering, what's wrong with him? Right after, Lucy walked up next to him and spoke softly, hey. She raised a hand and whispered, if you really are a mage, you should teach them a lesson to shut them up. Hearing that, Ian frowned in confusion. Teach them a lesson? Lucy immediately sat down next to him and explained, it doesn't matter if you're a mage or whatever. Mercenaries will look down on anyone who looks meek. She glanced at Owen's group and added, so, you have to show off your power to scare them a bit. Lucy looked up at him, sincerely advising, if you do that, they'll actually come back and protect you if anything happens. Hearing that, Ian was startled and stared at her blankly without saying a word. After a moment, he looked forward, deep in thought. She's right. But how should I do it? I've never actually gotten angry before. Nearby, Dylan spat into the bowl he had just received with a look of utter disgust. Next, he gently used a leaf to wipe the rim of the bowl. Seeing this, Ian was so furious that his veins popped. Did he just spit into my bowl? Dylan, holding the bowl, felt the ground beneath his feet shake and screamed in panic. What's that? An earthquake. Suddenly, he looked up in a daze when he heard Ian's voice. You. Ian stood tall in front of Dylan, his face dark, gritting out every word in anger. How dare you spit into my bowl? Dylan was terrified, his whole body trembling uncontrollably. I'm sore. Dylan fell to his knees, shivering, not daring to look up as he begged. I'm sorry, Sir Mage. Ian rolled his eyes in anger when he heard the man's explanation. I just thought I should wipe the bowl clean. Ian's eyes widened, and he put his hands on his hips, yelling, then you should wash it with water. Hearing that, Dylan froze and asked quietly, but water, isn't it dirty? Ian was shocked and asked, what did you say? Dylan frowned, thinking of those rivers, and said, it's full of mud and parasites. How could I use water to wash a bowl? Ian's jaw dropped, completely shell-shocked when Dylan added, spit is way more sanitary. In the dark night of the forest, that phrase kept echoing in his head. Way more sanitary. Way more sanitary. Ian looked at the clueless faces of Dylan's group and thought, unbelievable. He stood completely stiff, not moving an inch. Medieval hygiene standards are truly astounding. Owen cautiously approached, gently tapping Ian and calling out, Sir Mage? Next, Ian smirked and quickly chanted a spell. Streaks of bright red light rapidly shot into the nearby campfire. Seeing the flames shoot high into the air, Owen's group looked over in shock. The whole group stared at the fire, uttering in disbelief. What? Nearby, Lucy also stared blankly at the fire. Ian remained motionless and ordered, "Go get me some water right now." Then, unable to hold back anymore, he threw his arms up and roared, "You filthy medieval bastards." Dylan immediately turned and ran off as fast as he could. "I don't understand what's happening, but I think he's gone crazy." Late at night, the campfire was put out. The group returned to their tents to rest. Owen led the group forward, asking, "Did Kathy really go this way?" Caleb beside him laughed and said, "No doubt about it." He smiled brightly, imagining the two of them together. "This time, I'm keeping Kathy all to myself." Owen looked up at a dark silhouette in the distance and shouted, "Found her." He blushed, raising a hand and calling out, "Hey, it's dark. Come with me." Right after, Owen's brows furrowed tightly as he looked over. Seeing Nathan carrying Lucy on his shoulder, he let out a gasp of shock. Owen immediately yelled, "What the? Who are you people?" Suddenly, an arrow flew from the opposite side, piercing straight through the chest of Caleb, who was standing right next to him. Seeing him fall, Owen cursed in anger, "You bastards! How dare you do this to our people?" He drew his sword and led the men behind him, charging forward. "Kill them." Seeing this, Nathan frowned and scoffed disdainfully. "These weaklings don't look like much." Suddenly, Lucy, who was slung over his shoulder, snapped her eyes open. She then bit down hard on Nathan's shoulder, making him cry out in pain. Nathan let go, throwing Lucy hard onto the ground, and clutched his wound. Trembling all over, she immediately got up and ran away as fast as she could. Clutching his shoulder, he watched Lucy run off and shouted, "The target is getting away." After her, inside the tent, Ian rested his head on his arm, deep in thought. His brows were tightly knit as he kept muttering, "Spit? Absolutely not." Suddenly, Ian jolted upright when he heard a voice calling out, "Human! It's a human! Humans are coming! Wake up! Hurry!" Ian sat still on the bed, his face full of confusion. "What is this? This presence?" He looked over when he heard a voice calling from outside, "Sir Mage." A face full of panic lifted the tent flap and yelled, "Things are bad." At night, the bright full moon illuminated the entire forest. As Ian stepped out of the tent, he saw the group engaged in a fierce battle. Nathan swung his blade, effortlessly finishing off an opposing mercenary. He stepped on the man's corpse and loudly ordered, "I don't care. Kill them all if you have to." Nathan raised his sword high, looking at the men around him, and added, "Find that bitch." Lucy gripped the strap of her bag tightly, hiding behind a nearby tree. She hugged her head in fear, crouching down and worrying. "What do I do? At this rate, I'll be caught." Suddenly, Lucy flinched as she felt the tip of a sword pointed straight at her head. Victor looked down from above and said coldly, "So this is where you are." He smirked and shouted fiercely, "Get up right now, or I'll chop your arm off." Lucy's face went pale, her whole body trembling in fear. "It's over." Seeing that she wasn't moving, Victor raised the sword in his hand high. Suddenly, his eyes widened, and he looked behind him in shock. A powerful surge of energy rushed in from afar, blasting Victor backward. Not far away, Ian had his hand raised, residual magic still lingering around him. Lucy immediately looked up at him. Ian quickly reached out and grabbed her hand, pulling her up. He smiled softly at her and gently reminded, "Stay close and follow me." Lucy stared at him in awe, pressing her lips together without saying a word. A group of men lined up, hands placed on the shoulders of the person in front. The one at the back of the line raised a hand and shouted, "Sir Mage, we are ready." Hearing that, Ian placed a hand on his chest and closed his eyes. Well then, his lips moved slightly as he began to chant, "O darkness." Immediately, flashes of magical light lit up the sky. Ian raised a hand, and streams of dark aura mixed with blue light quickly gathered. Seeing the dark aura appear beside him, Owen gasped in shock. "What is this?" The entire area was engulfed in darkness. Piercing screams rang out. "I can't see anything. Damn it. Light the torches." Torches were quickly lit. In that pitch-black darkness, screams continued to echo. Over here. It's too hot. It's me. Then over here. I told you it's not. In the darkness, Ian led Rick's group forward. If we keep moving like this. Suddenly, a system panel popped up, skill activated. Casting dark vision. Can see clearly in the dark. Suddenly, a loud shout rang out in the darkness. Hey! Aaron appeared behind Rick with a torch, shouting, over here. He immediately raised his sword high. Where do you think you're going? Faces filled with panic, bodies shaking like leaves. Spare me. Ian, at the front, turned his head back, his eyes flashing with a blue light. Oh, fire burn. Along with a scream, the flame from the torch erupted, engulfing Aaron completely. In the blink of an eye, he collapsed to the ground, covered in severe burns. Seeing this, the rest of the men froze in place, too shocked to move. Ian gritted his teeth, staring intently at them. This should be enough to scare them off. Right after, panic cries rang out. It's a mage. There's a mage over there. Seeing this, Nathan raised his sword and led the charge forward. Everyone attack. Suddenly, Isaac looked to the side, his face full of terror. Longtail, with red eyes and a wide-open maw, lunged from the right. Isaac's group froze in place, not daring to move. Andrian also stood frozen in fear, not daring to budge. Ian's jaw dropped as he stared blankly. Is that? He looked at the glowing eyes of Longtail and thought, a drake. Nathan watched as Isaac's fresh blood dripped from its mouth, letting out a groan. Immediately, he turned and ran, pointing back and stammering, Sir Mage. There's a dragon. Ian looked at Longtail, groaning inwardly. This is bad. Seeing the drake look his way, he panicked. At this rate, I'm dead. The system voice chimed in. You have witnessed a primal mystery. Ian looked at the notification panel in front of him, letting out a confused sound. The notification screen continued to display. Acquired summoning magic skill. Can communicate with and summon mystical beings. Ian looked at Longtail in front of him, wondering, summoning magic? His brows furrowed as he guessed. Don't tell me. Even that drake? Ian thought back to his past experiences, deep in thought. Is it just like the mysteries I've encountered before? He tightly clenched his trembling fists. If so, then. Hearing Ian call out, Longtail tilted his head slightly. Oh, Drake. The others also stared at him in terror. Sir Mage. Longtail opened his mouth wide, his eyes narrowing as he stared intently at Ian. Ian kept a calm face, constantly reassuring himself. It's okay. I can do this. Streams of blue light flashed from Ian's body. Because the mysteries have never betrayed me. He patted his chest firmly and shouted, I am. Then, Ian pointed a finger at Longtail and added, your friend. With a serious face, he held up a sign and yelled with all his might, friend. No bullying. No fighting. Longtail narrowed his eyes, letting out low growls. Julian watched anxiously, whispering, I wonder what it's saying. Frowning, he placed a finger to his lips and warned, quiet. The mage is listening. Ian stared at Longtail in front of him, completely motionless. But inside, he was frantically clutching his head and groaning. What is it saying? Finally, Ian had to make a decision. I have no other choice. I have to use points to level up the skill. He gently touched the system screen. I'll dump everything into summoning magic. Immediately, a notification popped up. Summoning magic ability has increased. Longtail's deep voice echoed. Ian's eyes widened in shock. I can hear it. He immediately looked up and called out, Sir Drake. The drake let out a roar. Then, Longtail opened his mouth wide and bellowed, nearly blowing Ian's group away. If you have something to say, spit it out. The corner of his mouth twitched into a smile as he thought. As expected, this method works. Then, Ian nervously bit his fingernail. After a moment, Ian's voice rang out in response. Sir Drake, I have no intention of fighting you. Hearing that, Longtail replied disdainfully. A puny human wants to fight me? Ridiculous. Ian casually continued, exactly. We would definitely be killed in the blink of an eye. To a being like you, Sir Drake, we aren't even worth your attention. Hearing this, Longtail asked doubtfully, Are you asking me to spare your lives? Rick, standing behind, asked anxiously, Telepathy? Julian's face was also pale. I'm not sure. Exactly. I'm too lazy to even kill you. Lucy bit her lip, looking over anxiously. Longtail opened his mouth and continued, exactly. I'm too lazy to even kill you. Hearing this, Ian couldn't hide his joy. All right, looks like we're good. But he froze when the Drake cut him off. However, Longtail's eyes flashed with a white light as he roared. Right now, I'm in a terrible mood. Trembling all over, he looked up and shouted, Sir Mage. Seeing this, Ian gritted his teeth and cursed inwardly. Damn it. What do I do now? Ian looked at Longtail and thought. So he's telling me to get out of his sight. I have no other choice. I'll just have to face this head on. Then, he looked at the Drake and shouted, Drake. Ian stood still, extending a hand forward, and asked, Why are you in such a bad mood? Longtail looked down with utter contempt. Why should I discuss that with a human? Calmly, Ian's voice replied. I just thought maybe I could help somehow. Longtail reared up, extending his claws forward. How arrogant. What could a puny human possibly do? Immediately after, Ian lowered his head and let out a massive roar. Surges of energy from the sky and surrounding lakes rapidly shot upwards. Lucy's group behind him felt the gathering energy and gasped in shock. Longtail also sensed the magic in the air and let out a curious sound. On the other side, streams of white magic swirled around Ian. Seeing this, the Drake opened his mouth wide and let out an impressed sound. Somewhat interesting. Ian opened his eyes, looking at the glowing lights around him, and smiled back. I am just an ordinary mage, seeking the mysteries of the world. Therefore, I hope to offer a bit of my power to help you, Sir Drake. Hearing this, Longtail looked down at him intently. After a long while, his voice rang out in agreement. From here on out, the negotiations begin. Inside the quiet forest, Ian looked at Longtail opposite him and thought, his killing intent is gone. He wiped the sweat from his forehead, secretly sighing in relief. At least we've escaped the immediate danger. Now it's time to show what I can do. Ian closed his eyes, touching his chin as he fell into deep thought. Even if I'm not entirely helpless, I can't let him lead me around by the nose with weird demands. Suddenly, his eyes widened in surprise as he recalled a questioning voice. Do you understand, Ian? Reincarnated, with one hand on her hip, gently instructed, You cannot use magic if you cannot communicate with the mysteries. Ian tilted his head in confusion as she added, Therefore, the relationship you build with them is extremely important. Reincarnated's voice continued, Whether as a friend or a subordinate, every mystery has a different personality. For a mage, the crucial thing is to understand and empathize with the emotions of the mystery. Back in the present, the corner of Ian's mouth curled up. That's right. For a mage, the most important thing is the art of communication. All right, let's see how I handle this, Drake. He glanced to the side. Manifest, skill tree. Immediately, Ian gasped in surprise when he saw the notification panel. Advanced summoning technique. By Demonite. Contrary to his calm exterior, he was so excited inside that he wanted to jump for joy. This is it. Ian stared intently at the screen. Let's see. The text on the screen read, No matter what, just give them the strongest alcohol. The bigger the body, the stronger the booze. He couldn't help but wonder, what? Next, the text on the screen flashed again. After that. Seeing this, Ian thought nervously. After that. The screen popped up another reminder. Flatter them as much as possible. He stood frozen in place, asking dumbly, What the hell is this? Ian dropped to his knees, thinking in despair, This is bad. A loner like me could never pull this off. Sensing this, Longtail wondered in confusion, What is a loner? He immediately looked up, full of determination. No. First, I have to win the Drake's favor. If I can do that, there will be a breakthrough. Seeing Ian hesitate, Longtail took the initiative to ask, What is it? With a face full of sincerity, he spoke up. I have prepared a gift for you, Sir Drake. May I present it to you? He looked down from above. A gift? Fine. Bring it here. Without turning around, Ian shouted. The man startled and immediately replied, Yes. He turned his head and urged loudly. Hurry to the cargo wagon. Bring the strongest alcohol here. Hurry up. A short while later, a chest of strong alcohol of various colors was laid out. Longtail looked down, complaining with utter dissatisfaction. What kind of stingy gift is this? Ian closed his eyes and softly added, In the human world, the rarer the quantity, the more expensive it is. In his mind, he couldn't help but raise a fist. What are you complaining about? Then, he quickly poured a large glass of wine. Ian held the freshly poured glass out toward Longtail. Here, smelling the strong alcohol fumes, he used his claws to pinch his nose. What is this smell? Longtail looked down from above, exuding an intense pressure as he asked, Mage, you're not trying to pull any tricks, are you? Seeing this, Ian gave a gentle smile. Not at all. In that case, I will drink first to prove it. He raised the glass, tilted his head back, and drank it down. Rick's group behind him watched nervously. After finishing the drink, Ian wiped his mouth and smiled. See? Absolutely no problem. He couldn't help but gag inwardly, thinking, this stuff is really strong. Longtail used 2 fingers to pinch his nose, hesitating. The smell is strong, but... He looked down at the glass of wine, hearing Ian's voice in his ear. Please, just take a sip. I believe you will be satisfied. Longtail gently used his claws to lift the glass and inspect it. Then, he stuck his tongue out and took a tentative lick. Julian watched anxiously, clasping his hands in prayer. On the other side, Longtail drank the entire glass, his snout flushed red. Ian looked at him and asked, How is it? His voice replied, Not exactly delicious. Hearing Longtail's next words, Ian's eyes widened. But for some reason, it's very addictive. Ian, beaming with joy, picked up another bottle. Please, have some more. It only gets better from here. Longtail asked uncertainly, Is that so? In the dark night, the bright full moon still illuminated the entire forest. Longtail, his face completely flushed, held up the glass he had just finished. Beside him, Ian wiped the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief, listening to him yell, You call this liquid alcohol? I love it. He looked at the pile of empty wooden barrels in front of him, worrying. He's drank over 7 barrels and still hasn't passed out. Ian, completely dumbfounded, gave a thumbs up. This guy, his tolerance is truly impressive. He looked down and took a small sip of the wine in his hand. I was planning to sneak away while he was asleep, but it looks like that's not happening. Suddenly, Ian's eyes widened in shock when he heard Longtail ask, Human, earlier you asked me, right? He lowered his head and said calmly, Why am I in a bad mood? Ian immediately replied, Yes. Ian was startled to see Longtail's teary eyes. Why is he suddenly getting so emotional? In the darkness, his sad voice echoed, My nest is in a bad location, and it's much more cramped than the others. Longtail threw his head back and cried loudly. Even so, she still said it was a comfortable place. Ian turned to stone, looking at him with a judgmental gaze. Is that so? He wondered inwardly. He has a girlfriend? With that red face. He lowered his head and added softly, But I don't know since when. Longtail's dejected voice continued, startling Ian. She started getting mocked by the others. His whole body trembled, and he gritted his teeth. Just for being with someone like me. I felt incredibly guilty towards her. Longtail's eyes flashed with a golden light as he looked up at the sky and roared. So I was the one who broke up with her. On the other side, Rick's group, who had been sleeping, jolted awake. What? Longtail looked up at the sky, continuously howling and wailing. The 3 men simultaneously clasped their hands in prayer and collapsed. Ian looked up at him, thinking, the feelings he has for the one he loves are no different from a human's. I actually feel a bit sorry for him. He touched his chin, calculating. Wait, if I use this to my advantage. Hearing Ian call out, Longtail looked over with a tear-streaked face. Drake. He rested a hand on his knee and stood up. I will use magic to help you fix your nest. He looked over in disbelief and asked, What? You will? The corner of Ian's mouth curled up into a smile as he continued. That's right. But in exchange, he put his hands on his hips, a bright smile on his face. Could you grant me one request? The next morning, the sunlight gradually illuminated the towering cliffs. Ian stood up calmly, leaning against the back of the wagon, muttering in his sleep, I miss you too. Ian placed a finger on his forehead. Excuse me. Still dreaming, he puckered his lips and called out, Darling. Seeing this, Ian was furious, his veins popping. He leaned in close and said coldly, If you don't wake up, I'm going to break your fingers. Filled with panic upon seeing Ian staring at him with a serious face, he immediately scrambled backward, letting out a loud scream. The wagon lost its balance, causing Rick and the others to fall out. He and the others immediately sat up, looking over. Unable to hide his confusion, he asked, "Mage, what exactly happened?" Ian replied calmly, "I vaguely remember the drake letting out a roar." Hearing that, he continued, "And then everyone passed out." Ian cursed inwardly in anger. "Damn it. I shouldn't have picked them up." Lucy looked over anxiously and asked, "Did the drake go back to its nest?" Ian denied it. "No, it's waiting up ahead." Shivering, he hugged Julian next to him. "Don't tell me to eat us?" Ian replied with a serious face. Ian looked down at the group. "It's waiting for me. I made a deal with it on the condition that I help you guys." Lucy frowned, uncertainly repeating, "A deal?" He cried out, deeply moved, "Mage, sacrificing yourself for us." Ian frowned and turned away. Maybe I overdid it. He couldn't help but think of last night's scene. I told it to let these people go, and in exchange, I'd fix its nest. From behind, someone pointed a finger straight up. Grand Mage Reincarnated. Julian also shouted loudly, "Reincarnated." Hearing the cheers, he turned around in surprise. "What is this?" Immediately, a song praising the super cool master Ian began. "Defeated the roaring drake. Defeated it." The voices of Rick's trio kept ringing out. "So cool. Scold that drake. Awesome. Scold it." They cheered excitedly. "And finally, you made the drake submit." The three of them, with tears in their eyes, raised their fists and shouted, "Submit." He immediately stepped forward and shouted loudly, "From today onwards, we live and die with the mage. We will protect you with our lives." Andrian in the back immediately chimed in loudly. Ian stared blankly at them. "I don't even understand what they're saying." He pointed at the three of them and instructed, "Get ready to leave before I get back. Don't leave without me." Rick placed a hand on his chest and assured him, "Don't worry. We are of one mind." Ian replied blankly, "I see." Seeing him leave, he immediately turned and ordered, "Then first, let's check the number of mercenaries." Lucy frowned, thoughtfully glancing at Ian who had just left. Then, she turned and headed deep into the forest. Inside a narrow cliff, Longtail's voice echoed as he introduced, "This is my nest." Ian looked around the cave and let out a gasp of awe. Seeing this, he roared angrily, "What's with that reaction? It's too late to regret it now." He panicked, raising his hands in denial. "I didn't say that. I'm just taking a look." Ian grimaced as he looked around. "I was already sleepy, and using the Moronius language makes me even more tired." His face full of exhaustion, he sighed heavily. "Let's get this done quickly so I can rest. If I just push those protruding rocks inside and flatten the walls, it should be much more spacious." Immediately, Ian closed his eyes, silently sensing the energy fluctuations. After a moment, his lips moved slightly as he chanted the spell, "O Earth." The Earth energy appeared and asked, "The star again?" "Human." Ian looked straight ahead with a serious face. "I have a request." Her voice rang out, rejecting him. "I'm not interested. I'm busy." Seeing this, he sighed inwardly. "She really finds me annoying." Seeing Ian wake up, Longtail immediately asked, "How did it go?" He crossed his arms and replied, "Earth refused to talk to me. I'll try again when she's in a better mood." Ian's brows furrowed. "I'll probably just get rejected again." Hearing this, Longtail accepted it. "If Earth has rejected you, then there's nothing we can do." He looked over in surprise, unable to hide the shock on his face. Longtail looked dejected, lowering his head. "She's simply not my soulmate. Thank you for trying for someone like me." Ian couldn't help but want to comfort him. "Longtail." He looked straight ahead and asked, "What is your mage name?" Ian's voice replied, "Reincarnated." Longtail extended a claw and said, "I am Longtail the Drake. From now on, we are friends." Ian gently grasped his claw and called out, "Longtail." The two held hands tightly, quietly looking at each other. A notification popped up on the screen. "New skill acquired. Drake summoning magic. Can call upon your friend, the Drake, for help. If it is a request from a friend, he will gladly answer." Ian looked at the notification sadly. "I got the skill, but I didn't expect to be unable to do anything for my friend." Suddenly, Longtail's voice rang out, making him look over. "Ian." He waved his hand, revealing a massive amount of treasure behind him. To celebrate us becoming friends, I'll give you a gift. Pick whatever you like. He looked at the piles of gold and silver and thought, just as Master said, dragons love collecting treasure. It seems their relatives are the same. Ian picked up a sparkling gem. What a pity. If Earth saw these, she would definitely listen to me. Suddenly, he froze, standing dumbfounded. Ian gasped as he realized, wait, if I use this the right way. He immediately turned and asked, Longtail, can I draw a few lines on the ground? He looked at him in confusion and asked, draw? After a long while, Ian quietly stared at the gem sitting in the middle of the magic circle. He pressed his lips together, thinking, I forgot how Master taught me. Ian looked at the light emitting from the magic circle. If the mystery is throwing a tantrum, just offer a tribute using a magic circle. Longtail looked over in confusion. What are you doing? Hearing this, he smiled and replied, just watch. Ian happily looked up and shouted, Oh Earth! A voice echoed in the space, replying, What is it, young human? He immediately shouted loudly, Move the rocks. Flatten the walls. A blinding light radiated from the gem, illuminating the surroundings. Along with the pale blue light, streams of runic text continuously appeared. The cliff walls began to crack and then rapidly receded. Sunlight from outside poured into the cave through the gaps. Longtail was startled as he felt the sunlight shining in from outside. His eyes immediately widened in disbelief. Is this my nest? Ian looked at the incredibly lavishly decorated cave and said, It's my gift to you. Longtail's eyes sparkled as he exclaimed, Unbelievable. Ian looked down proudly. Looks like he's about to cry from emotion. He looked at the beautiful cave and yelled, It's so spacious. It's so beautiful. Longtail tilted his head back and took a deep breath. It even smells good. He glanced sideways and asked, Ian, did you create this smell with magic too? He immediately denied it. No. Longtail grabbed Ian's hand with his claws and shouted, Thank you, my friend. He tossed Ian up into the air. His face was filled with overwhelming joy. With this, I have nothing to be ashamed of in front of her anymore. Even if we have hatchlings, they'll be safe here. He gasped and yelled, I didn't plan for that. Ian replied helplessly, Anyway, as long as you like it. After a moment, his feet touched the ground. Hey. Ian stared blankly, touching his hand, wondering, what is this? He panicked, covering his mouth in confusion. Ian looked at Longtail's worried face and wondered, why? He screamed in terror, Hey, are you okay? There's blood. Seeing him collapse to the ground and pass out, Longtail yelled, Ian. Longtail held Ian tightly, completely panicked. Buddy, wake up, Ian. Seeing Ian's face turn terrifyingly pale, he became even more frantic. Mom, what am I supposed to do? Right then, a voice called out from afar, Mage. Lucy rushed over. As soon as he saw her, Longtail immediately widened his eyes in caution. She also looked up in fear. Lucy quickly slammed on the brakes, her shoes dragging across the ground. He gently set Ian down on the ground, then turned to bare his fangs and growl menacingly. Lucy was trembling so much her voice cracked, but she tried to stay calm, raising her hands to explain, Wait, Drake. Listen to me first. I'm Ian's friend, so please don't eat me. Okay. Longtail tilted his head in confusion. Ian. Right then, Ian stirred beside them, letting out a soft groan. Both of them immediately snapped their heads to look at him. His eyes were still tightly shut, his face scrunched up in pain. The sky gradually darkened. Inside the small room, lit only by a flickering candle, Ian finally slowly woke up. He groggily waved his hand around, subconsciously repeating, What time is it? My phone. Ian's hand suddenly brushed against something soft next to him. He still hadn't opened his eyes, his groggy mind wondering, Why is my phone so soft? Did it turn into a gummy or something? His fingers unconsciously gave it another gentle squeeze, thinking, So soft. Feels like a cat's paw. Right then, Lucy's voice rang out beside him. Are you awake? Ian's eyes snapped open. He sat bolt upright, so panicked he stuttered. Kathy, why are you here? Am I still dreaming? It feels like I'm recording a video on my phone. Lucy looked worried and immediately advised, Lie down a bit longer. Your head is still spinning. Sure enough, the next second, A wave of intense dizziness hit him, making Ian clutch his head. She quickly reached out and asked, "Are you okay? Don't sit up so suddenly like that." He squinted, starting to recall. "Oh right, I passed out. I forced the summoning level too high, trying to communicate with the Drake." Thinking of that, Ian slowly looked up at Lucy, then immediately pulled his hood down to cover most of his face, worrying inwardly. Damn it, did she see everything? He was so embarrassed he wanted to disappear. After calming down, he looked around and asked, "Where's the Drake?" She hesitated slightly before answering. He suddenly left. Ian sighed, guessing in his mind, "That guy, did he go find her?" He scratched his head awkwardly. "Sorry for causing trouble." Lucy looked at him gently and shook her head. "Don't worry about it. I'm fine." Ian stayed silent for a few seconds, then remembered something else. "But how did you get in here? Wasn't it really hard to get past the Drake?" She seriously recounted everything. "I just said I was your friend." He repeated in disbelief. "How? In Maronius?" Lucy looked at him in confusion. "What's that?" Ian's eyes widened. "What? Did she just barge in here using a translator or something?" But a wave of exhaustion quickly hit him, blurring his vision. "I'm still so sleepy." Right then, Lucy seemed to gather all her courage to speak up. "Actually, I came here even knowing it was dangerous, Mage. There's something I want to tell you. The ambush last night was because of me. Surprising, right? I'm sorry for causing trouble." Ian also scratched his head in confusion. The atmosphere suddenly grew heavy. He remembered how terrified she looked that day and thought, is that why she was trembling so much? Ian cleared his throat slightly. He frowned and questioned, "So you're involved with those bandits? Are you planning to reveal your true identity now too?" Lucy immediately retorted, "No. What part of me looks like a bandit?" Ian replied seriously, "In fantasy, a beautiful female bandit as the leader is a common trope." Her face flushed red with anger and embarrassment, but she couldn't find the words to argue back. Finally, Lucy just looked down and confessed softly, "To tell you the truth, this is a secret. I'm not Kathy." Hearing this, an image of Lucy wearing a gorgeous dress and proudly declaring, "I am the princess of a kingdom," immediately popped into Ian's head. He replied nonchalantly, "Oh, really?" But inside, he was starting to panic. "Don't tell me she's actually a princess." She seriously recounted, "My real name is Lucy. Lucy of the Tarian family. Those bandits were sent by my fiancé to kidnap me." Ian looked at her, repeating the word he just heard in his head. Fiancé. His eyes lit up. "Don't tell me. A lover's quarrel?" Noticing his weird look, Lucy immediately denied it. "What's with that look? It's not what you think. Actually, I planned to run far away so he couldn't find me. But after what happened yesterday, I'm no longer confident I can escape on my own." She grabbed his hand, her voice pleading, "So please, Ian, help me escape." Ian asked in confusion, "No, wait. What exactly are you running from? Did your fiancé do something bad?" Lucy recounted fearfully, "The Tarian family is a barony that governs the fine territory. Because we lack knights to serve us, we are constantly threatened by outside forces. At this rate, the Tarian family will be destroyed in the territorial war. In the end, the family married me off to a knight who used to be a mercenary captain. Because he was the captain of the most powerful mercenary group at the time, the forces targeting our family also decreased. At first, even he seemed satisfied with his status as the son-in-law of a baron's family. But then, he started abusing the power he gained from that position. He started building a harem, treating me like a joke. My parents couldn't take it anymore, so they demanded to break off the engagement. But that guy, he poisoned my parents." As she said this, Lucy's voice choked up, unable to hold back her tears. She sobbed as she continued, "Because if the engagement was broken, he would lose the power he had. So he poisoned my parents to silence them and the servants." Ian frowned, cursing inwardly. He's a total monster. Lucy tried to regain her composure and added, "No matter how good he is with a sword, if he doesn't marry me, he's just a commoner. He can't inherit the Tarian family's wealth either. That's why I ran away with the help of a servant. Because I would rather die than marry a guy like that. To ensure things go his way, he will definitely keep hunting me down. So please, Ian, help me escape safely." Ian fell into deep thought. This situation is really serious. Acting alone would definitely be tough. poisoning his parents-in-law for power. And because of that, his fiancée is now in danger of being caught. This feeling is really complicated. I don't know how to describe it. I really can't understand the mindset of these medieval power-hungry people. Lucy still held tightly onto his hand, her voice choked with emotion. Please, I will definitely repay you. I swear on the honor of the Tyrion family. Ian scratched his head, wondering, I mean, why me? What if I betray you? She immediately explained, oh, because that guy is very stingy. Even if you sell me out, he'll only give you a few silver coins. She pressed her lips tightly together and continued, but me, I can give you everything. He repeated with a confused look, everything? Her voice rang out decisively, yes. If you want, I can even give you the entire Tyrion family. A heavy silence fell over them. Ian quietly looked at her, his mind racing. So that means I could even marry her? A peasant's son becoming a semi-noble. It's truly a rare opportunity. But if it really comes to that, what about Ian Eredit Raven, the disciple of the Mage Eredit? Living as a noble and getting involved in politics isn't a bad life. But if I was born in a fantasy world, shouldn't I devote myself to pursuing magic? Helping Lucy, I could probably gain experience as a mage and earn some travel money too. For now, I'll just fend off the pursuers. I'll leave the rest to fate. He cleared his throat and spoke up. Honestly, you should hire someone better with a sword than me. After all, mages aren't warriors. Lucy was terrified, her voice catching. Right then, Ian suddenly stood up, cutting her off. But, if there's a reward, I'll help you escape. As for the consequences later, you're on your own. Hearing this, Lucy covered her face and sobbed loudly. He immediately panicked. Hey, why are you crying? Did I say something too harsh? I mean, I'll help you. She reached out and grabbed his hand, saying sincerely, thank you. Thank you so much, Ian. As she spoke, Lucy buried her face in his shoulder, tears streaming down her face. Ian stayed silent, not saying a word. He just quietly comforted her with a warm embrace. The sun rose higher. Longtail lay sprawled on the grass, looking completely satisfied as he soaked in the sunlight. A soft noise from the cave entrance made him lower his sunglasses and look over. Seeing Ian step out, Longtail immediately called out happily, Buddy, how are you feeling? He nodded in confirmation. I'm fine. He muttered to himself. He's even trying to get a tan to look cool in front of her. Ian looked up at the sky and suggested, we should head down the mountain soon. Everyone is waiting. Thanks for the gift. Longtail smiled happily at him. It's nothing special. Hop on. I'll give you a ride. Ian didn't hesitate and climbed right on. Thanks, Longtail. Lucy stood nearby, watching the two of them with a dumbfounded expression. Unlike his earlier gentle demeanor, Longtail turned and yelled in her face. Hey, Ian's girl. You get on too. Ian shook his head to stop him. Hey, Longtail, it's not like that. He turned his head with a confused look. It's not. Lucy stood frozen, her face full of question marks. What are they talking about? While she was still bewildered, an arm suddenly reached out in front of her. Ian leaned slightly toward her and said softly, Get on behind me. Lucy grabbed his hand tightly and climbed on behind him. Seeing that both of them were seated securely, Longtail immediately stood up, his face full of excitement. All right, let's go. He whipped his tail back and shot off like a gust of wind. Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, Andrian looked around anxiously and urged, Let's go. We need to move. You saw it yourself. All the mercenaries with us were wiped out. If those bandits are still lurking around, we're dead meat. Julian gritted his teeth and argued back. But would bandits really just wander aimlessly in the forest? Besides, if they had any brains, they would have retreated by now. And anyway, there's such a thing as duty. He immediately shot back. Anyone who becomes a bandit didn't have a brain to begin with. They'll definitely hunt us down. The two argued for a bit, then simultaneously turned to ask, Sir Rick, what do you think? Rick, who was sitting quietly on a large rock with his chin resting on his hands as if thinking about something very serious, suddenly opened his eyes wide. After a few seconds of silence, he delivered his conclusion, We wait for the mage. Andrian frowned and asked, What? Julian happily gave a thumbs up in support. As expected, we'll follow the leader's decision. He crossed his arms, smiling confidently as he thought. He even defeated a drake. There's no way he'd chicken out. He definitely ran into some trouble and got delayed. They believed that without a doubt. But 10 minutes later, they were ambushed by bandits. With swollen faces, they regretted it bitterly. We should have run instead of waiting. Connor raised a hand and warned, "Hey, stop your crying. I'll make this quick." The three of them, tears streaming down their faces, trembled and begged, "Spare us. We'll give you anything." Hearing that, he slowly sheathed his sword and began to negotiate. "Then hand over the girl." Rick immediately froze. "The girl?" Connor stepped right up to his face, threatening in a low growl. "That's right. I heard there's a very beautiful woman with dark blue hair." "Stop playing dumb." Rick stammered. Dark blue hair?" Andrian beside him also looked at him blankly and repeated, "Beautiful woman?" Right then, both Julian and Andrian almost simultaneously realized who Connor was talking about. "It's Kathy." Connor looked down at the three of them again and asked, "Where is she?" Rick looked around fearfully, whispering, "Hey, find Kathy." Julian trembled as he searched. Where did she go? A few seconds later, all three of them yelled at almost the same time, "She's not here." Hearing that, he immediately drew his sword again, his voice turning cold. "Is that so?" The three of them hugged each other, sobbing and begging, "Please spare us, Sir Mage." Right then, the ground shook violently. The bandits panicked, looking around. "What is that?" He was almost moved to tears as he shouted. "The mage brought a drake. We're saved." Connor frowned in confusion. "A mage? A drake?" A bandit in the back suddenly widened his eyes and yelled, "Hey, over there!" From a distance, Longtail was charging toward them at terrifying speed. He narrowed his eyes, noticing the girl sitting in the back, and wondered, "Isn't that the girl?" The bandit next to him gulped, his voice trembling. "Probably. But the thing she's riding right now, isn't that a drake?" Connor's face instantly went pale. He practically screamed. Under the morning sunlight, an excited voice rang out. "I'm so glad you're okay, Kathy." With one eye bruised, he raised a finger and said, "Good thing you went with the mage. Otherwise, those guys would have definitely done terrible things to you." Lucy couldn't help but mutter, "I think your face looks terrible right now." Andrian, leaning on a crutch, wondered, how did those guys know about Kathy? Julian, standing next to him, gasped in shock. "Now that you mention it, they asked for Kathy as soon as they arrived. Belonging to the Church of Angels and doing something like this, it's too much." Ian, standing behind them, heard this and thought, "The Church of Angels?" His eyes sharpened. It's been a while since I heard that name. In his mind, Ian couldn't help but recall the largest religion in this world, the Church of Angels. Their doctrines forbid turning believers into slaves. But human traffickers and slave traders abandoned those teachings long ago. Ian crossed his arms, calculating inwardly. More importantly, even after seeing a mage and a drake, they still didn't give up on Lucy. He stood still, looking at her figure nearby. They really are persistent hunters. Do they really want to get married that badly? Ian thought of Connor's group, his face scrunching up. This is bad. At this rate, we'll be discovered sooner or later. Then, he turned to look beside him. "Longtail, can you do me a favor?" He looked over and affirmed, "Of course. Just say the word." Ian put a hand on his hip and requested, "I want you to chase all those guys away. If necessary, you can kill them." Longtail's eyes flashed with a bloodthirsty glint. "If it's a request from a friend, I'd be happy to." He leaned over, watching Longtail's back as he quickly walked away. Ian stood still, calculating inwardly. Of course, I don't really want to say kill. But this is a medieval fantasy world, where killing is normal. If I want to survive in this world, I have to change too. Suddenly, he flinched, letting out a groan of pain. Ian reached up to hold his head. Maybe I used too much Moronius again. Seeing this, Lucy immediately ran over to support him, asking with concern, "Ian, did you push yourself too hard?" Ian held his head and said, "I'm fine." She frowned and grumbled, "You call this fine?" Rick's eyes sparkled as he rubbed his chin, staring intently at the two of them. He looked at their intimate interaction and asked, "You two look really close. Are you dating?" Later, Ian closed his eyes, lying in the carriage with Rick's group as they left. He felt a flash of light and suddenly opened his eyes wide. Ian looked at the notification screen. "Your drake has just killed another person." He was startled and thought, That makes 11. The automatic reporting from summoning magic is really convenient. But it's a shame I can't summon it right in front of them. He stared intently at the notification screen in front of him. Suddenly, a voice called out in his ear, "Ian." He replied softly, "Longtail." On the other side, he breathed a blast of fire at Connor's group and replied, "I've chased away everyone I saw." Ian crossed his arms and smiled brightly. "Thank you. You helped me a lot." Longtail also smiled back. "As long as it makes my buddy happy, that's enough." In the canyon, his voice echoed, "You have to go now." He replied calmly, "It's a shame, but we have to part ways." In Ian's mind, the recent memories of the two of them flashed by. Longtail can't leave the mountain range. It's a real pity we can't meet again. Longtail lowered his head and said softly, "Thank you for everything." He looked up. "Me too." Suddenly, he lowered his head, looking urgent. "Oh right. Are you interested in the mystery of the phoenix?" Inside the Riverview Castle, with a river flowing right through it, Ian crossed his arms, unable to help but think, a phoenix. In his mind, the words Longtail had told him echoed. "I heard there's an ice phoenix in the northern mountain range. Why don't you go check it out?" Ian thought about its information. A phoenix is a bird that doesn't disappear even when it dies. Not only is there the famous fire phoenix, but also the ice phoenix. They change their form depending on the environment. They are known as monsters with extremely high adaptability. Ian's brows furrowed in worry. "I wonder if I can summon it." Rick's group, faces full of smiles, quickly ran over. "Sir Mage." He held out a hand and asked, "We're about to go meet the Lord. Do you want to come with us?" Ian glanced sideways, thinking, for Lucy to escape safely, it's best not to attract the attention of someone with high status like a lord. Andrian also excitedly suggested, "Kathy, if you don't have anywhere to go, come with us." She looked around and shyly agreed. Immediately after, Lucy was startled when she felt Ian put his arm around her shoulder. He pointed a finger at her and said, "We'll rest at the inn before heading out." Julian and Andrian gasped in shock. "We?" Lucy's face turned completely red as she looked up at Ian. She closed her eyes and leaned her head against his chest. "I'm a bit tired." Seeing this from behind, he was incredibly excited. "So they really are." His face flushed red. He crossed his arms and laughed loudly. "They really are dating." The people around heard the loud laughter and looked over in confusion. Lucy smiled, watching Ian walk away, and shouted, "Pretending to date you will be more convenient. It'll save me from dealing with annoying guys." He didn't even turn around and asked, "Really?" Her cheeks flushed pink as she asked curiously, "By the way, why do you use honorifics with commoners?" Ian replied calmly, "Because I am a commoner. I'm a peasant's son." Hearing this, Lucy wondered, "But you're a mage now." Ian walked quickly ahead and added, "No special reason. I'm just copying my master." In his mind, he couldn't help but mutter, "I want to become someone like master. Friendly and polite." Hearing this, Lucy replied softly, her eyes still following him. He asked, "So what are you planning to do next?" She replied softly, "For now, I plan to go meet Count Katina." Lucy said seriously, "He's my uncle on my mother's side. If I explain the situation, he'll probably help." Ian turned his head, curious. "Sounds like your mother and the Count are quite close." She raised an eyebrow, looking away. "Not bad." Hearing this, Ian stared intently at Lucy. If she's not absolutely sure they're close, it's a bit suspicious. He suddenly stopped, asking worriedly, "Besides your uncle, is there anyone else you can trust?" Lucy immediately panicked. "Wait, are you doubting my uncle? There's no one in the world more trustworthy than him." Ian looked at her calmly. "Is that so?" He thought to himself. If she says so, he must be a good person. Lucy pulled her coat tighter, looking away. "Anyway, it's better than someone I don't know at all. Anyone else would definitely try to marry me." She smiled brightly, leaning in close to tease him. "Of course, if an outstanding mage like you proposed, I'd be very happy." Ian looked away. "Here we go again." Then, he looked at her seriously. "Our contract ends when we meet Count Katina, okay?" Lucy put her hands behind her back, dissatisfied. "Isn't that too cold? A noble is offering to marry you." Ian casually continued, "There are plenty of other women in the world besides you." Hearing that, she looked visibly annoyed, her cheeks puffing out. Next, Lucy, Her face flushed red, stomped forward angrily. Jerk. Seeing this, he quickly chased after her. Where are you going? The inn is this way. A long while later, the bell at the inn's door rang. As soon as Ian and Lucy walked in, a welcoming voice rang out. Welcome. He quickly walked up to the counter. We'd like to stay for a few nights and use the bathhouse. Ian placed a pouch of coins on the counter and asked, Is this enough? Leon looked at the gold coins inside the pouch, his face turning respectful. More than enough. I'll prepare a room right away. Then, she pointed a finger at Lucy and asked, By the way, will the young lady be bathing too? She immediately crossed her arms over her chest, full of caution. No need. Thank you. Ian frowned and asked, What's wrong? Don't tell me you think the water is dirty too. Lucy's face turned red. Partly. But. She gripped the brim of her hat tightly, complaining in annoyance. Do I really have to spell it out? Ian looked at her in confusion, staying silent. Then, he walked into the medieval bathhouse, completely out in the open. When Ian realized this, he froze in shock. He looked at Lucy's embarrassed expression and said, Then I'll go alone. Looking exhausted, she reached up to take off her cloak. Good grief. Immediately, the men around them stared with lustful eyes. Ian's eyes flashed as he glanced around. He immediately shouted loudly, Lucy, put your hood up. She put her hands on her hips and said haughtily, Call me Kathy. Ian immediately rushed over and pulled Lucy's hood up. Hurry up. Everyone is looking. She adjusted her cloak, complaining angrily. Good Lord. So annoying. Henry's group nearby smiled maliciously as they watched. Inside the inn, the sound of gossip echoed from a room. Did you see that woman earlier? Philip said, completely infatuated. I've never seen a beauty like that in my entire life. Evan beside him also rubbed his hands together eagerly. Truly an angel descended to earth. Henry thought of Ian's slender build and added, There's only one person with her, and it's some weak-looking rich kid. He smiled wickedly and suggested, How about we kidnap her and have some fun? Philip immediately agreed loudly. Sounds good, but it looks like they aren't staying long. It'll be tough. Henry smirked. Then we have no choice. Evan in the back cracked his knuckles and shouted, We grab her today. The next morning, inside the magnificent castle, a questioning voice rang out. I see. You want to do business here. Wands rested his chin on his hand, waving dismissively. Just do your job well. Don't cause any trouble for me. He immediately knelt down, respectfully thanking him. Thank you, my lord. He knelt on one knee, looking up and thinking, I heard that if I can just please the Baron, I might even be able to enter this castle tonight. Suddenly, a thought flashed in Rick's mind. That's right. How about I tell him about the mage? Immediately, he bowed his head and shouted, Baron, there is something I wish to report. Hearing this, Wands raised an eyebrow and asked, What is it? Rick's eyes immediately lit up, filled with anticipation. Actually, it's a secret, but out of deep respect for you, I cannot stay silent. Hearing this, Wands was overjoyed, gently stroking his mustache. Very commendable. Speak. Placing a hand on his chest, he sincerely recounted. Actually, during my travels, I met a mage. Then, he started waving his hands around as he told the story. He did this. And then swoosh. And he did this too. He saved us. Wands sat up straight, touching his chin in thought. Truly astonishing. Suddenly, Rick raised a finger, his voice dropping lower. Now, don't be surprised just yet. Because, he immediately clapped his hands and added, That mage is currently staying at an inn in this very town. His face instantly turned pale, and he yelled in shock, What? He broke out in a cold sweat, becoming restless. This is bad. If an unpredictable mage gets angry and unleashes a drake in my territory. Imagining Ian going crazy and letting Longtail burn everything to the ground. His face grew even uglier. No, the situation is even worse. Because right now, in this territory, there really is a bunch of lunatics. Wands thought of the other group that had just arrived. The Santiago Knight Order. A group of people who took up arms to serve God. They were both priests and warriors. Instead of participating in wars, they hunted demons and monsters. The knights claimed to be the protectors of humanity again. Wands couldn't help but worry. But if the Knights of Santiago and the tamer mage Rake clash in this territory, Wands's face turned completely pale, filled with anxiety. Immediately after, he panicked and shouted, "Commander!" Kevin immediately placed a hand on his chest in response. "Yes, sir." Walter pointed a finger at Rick, ordering, "Prepare a room for this man." His face was covered in cold sweat as he added, "Summon the Knights of Santiago immediately." Outside the castle, Walter's anxious voice echoed, "Bring them here before anything happens." At the same time, in the inn, Ian and Lucy were eating in the main hall. Nearby, a bearded man angrily demanded, "Where's my food?" Leon, looking anxious, apologized, "I'm sorry, I'll get it ready right away." She rested her chin on her hand and let out a sigh. "The bathwater isn't even ready yet." Ian immediately stood up. "I'll do it myself. I'm the helper after all." Leon was startled and asked, "Are you sure? I feel bad, especially since you're eating." He leaned in close to Lucy's ear and reminded her, "Just go upstairs after you finish eating." She nodded in agreement. "Got it." As soon as Ian left, Lucy continued to eat her soup, spoonful by spoonful. Henry, seeing her sitting alone from behind, flashed a sly smile. A moment later, Lucy finished her meal and quietly walked up the stairs alone. She clasped her hands behind her back, skipping happily toward her room. Suddenly, a hand reached out and grabbed Lucy's arm to stop her. "Miss." Henry looked at her and asked in a low voice, "Excuse me, are you the companion of the black-haired young man who just went outside?" Lucy immediately yanked her arm back and coldly demanded, "Who are you?" The man looked completely sincere, placing a hand on his chest as he replied, "I'm an errand boy hired by him." Right after, Henry held up a gold coin and added, "He told me to take you to the docks immediately." Hearing this, Lucy looked guarded and asked, "I thought he went to take a bath?" He quickly defended himself, but it seems something happened right after he went behind the bathhouse. She thought of Graham's men, and her face turned pale. "Don't tell me those guys tracked us down here." Henry immediately held out a hand, urging her loudly, "There's no time. Please come with me." Lucy quickly followed him and left. She hurried after Henry, running down the stairs. The inn's door was quickly pulled open. Lucy panicked as she ran after his fading figure. Suddenly, she let out a gasp and stopped in her tracks. From above, Lucy saw him sitting and watching the pot of water in the courtyard below. "Ian." Right at that moment, Henry raised a sack high from behind. Immediately after, the inn's door slammed shut. While sitting in the courtyard, he suddenly heard Lucy calling out, "Ian?" He turned his head in confusion. "Lucy?" Ian looked puzzled as he saw Philip swinging a wooden club at him from behind. He immediately ducked, easily dodging the attack. The man instantly tripped over his own feet. Ian watched Philip fall beside him with a groan. He furrowed his brows, staring at the man in thought. Looks like he's not one of her fiancé's lackeys. Just some small fry. Seeing Ian looking their way, Henry and Evan loudly urged, "Hurry up." He gritted his teeth, glaring at the two who were about to run off. Philip immediately stood up and blocked the door. "Don't even think about running." Ian put a hand to his head and sighed. "Good grief, what a pain." He cursed angrily in his mind. "I lost them because of this guy." Right after, streaks of blue light suddenly appeared. Philip looked at the surging mana and screamed in terror, "What the hell is that?" Ian closed his eyes, sensing the power around him. "With my current strength, I can't use magic freely. In that case, among the mysteries willing to lend me their power, I have to find one I can control." In the darkness, the dark energy responded, "Human. The light is fading. It's the perfect time to have some fun. Let's play." Ian's eyes snapped open. This voice. Darkness. Next, he raised a hand high and shouted, "Oh, darkness." Seeing the streams of black aura, Philip screamed in panic. "What is this?" He crouched on the ground, yelling in terror, "Why is it suddenly so dark? I can't see anything." Ian's eyes flashed with a crimson light as he replied, "When I cast dark magic, only I can see." "You bastard." Immediately after, the sound of beatings echoed, along with Philip begging, "Please, spare me." Suddenly, the sound of a group of people running toward them came from afar. Ian immediately looked up. Did this guy call for backup? He waved his hand, gently dispelling the surrounding darkness. Ian looked down at Philip, who was sitting on the ground, and demanded, "Hey, where did you take her?" The man smiled brightly and yelled, "Look, I can see." Ian smacked Philip's head hard with the wooden stick and shouted, "Answer me, you punk." Suddenly, A white blur flashed past Ian's face. He turned his head and saw a dagger embedded deep into the wall. Salvador stepped in front of Ian and stopped him. "That's enough, young man." His face turned serious upon hearing the man ask, "The darkness just now?" Salvador asked calmly, "Did you summon it?" Ian looked at the group calmly and replied, "I am the mage who summoned the darkness." Salvador and his group stared at him intensely. Ian furrowed his brows, looking at him with utter confusion. What intense killing intent? Who is this old man? Philip, his face bruised and battered, knelt on the ground and pleaded with Salvador, "Please save me." He grabbed the man's leg and cried out, "That mage tried to kill me for no reason." Salvador was startled and asked, "What?" Hearing this, Ian radiated a dark aura as he glared at Philip, who was clinging to the man's leg and wailing. Salvador's lips curled into a smirk. "I see." He clasped his hands behind his back, looking straight ahead. If he's a mage, it makes sense. Under the afternoon sun, the pot on the stove was steaming heavily. Ian looked up and asked coldly, "What do you mean it makes sense?" Salvador replied calmly, "Isn't that just how mages are?" He held his head high and added coldly, "People who do whatever they want." Hearing this, Ian was so furious that his whole body trembled. Next, his gaze swept over the others. What does this old man think mages are? Ian gripped the sword in his hand tightly and shouted, "Stop talking nonsense." He angrily raised a fist and yelled, "That guy attacked first. Why would I hit someone for no reason? Are you crazy?" Immediately after, the entire space fell into dead silence. Ian's body stiffened, panic rising in his chest. "I'm screwed." I yelled too loud. "If that old man gets mad and draws his sword." Suddenly, Salvador flashed a bright smile. He clasped his hands behind his back and said, "Judging by the way you speak, you seem to be a capable mage." Deke stepped forward, adding seriously, "However, that doesn't mean you're allowed to use dark magic." Ian's expression darkened as he asked, "Dark magic?" The man stepped up to him and affirmed, "That's right. Shrouding the surroundings in darkness means hiding from the sun, the eye of the world." Deke crossed his arms, smirking. Hiding in the darkness is a despicable act. Hearing this, Ian looked up. Darkness is despicable because it rejects the light? He stared at the group in front of him, thinking, these guys, using religious rhetoric like that, they must be followers of the angelic church. Right after, Ian covered his mouth and let out a light cough. He asked calmly, "Isn't the coexistence of day and night the will of the heavens? If the will of the gods only lies in the light, then what is the purpose of the night?" Deke froze, stammering that. Ian put on a serious face and shouted, "Just as the existence of the sun creates light, its absence creates darkness, which is also a law of the heavens. It's not like I made up a non-existent rule. So what's wrong with using it?" The man crossed his arms, frozen in place. That. The people behind him immediately gathered around and started whispering. After a long moment, a man pressed his lips together in silence. Then, he smiled brightly and shouted, "It's true that without permission, no one can create darkness under the sun." The man next to him also raised a fist. "I misunderstood. This is also the will of the heavens." Seeing this, Ian lowered his head and muttered, "These medieval folks are crazy." He looked up at the group and asked, "Can I go now? My sister was taken. I have to go find her." Philip immediately panicked and yelled, "What? Sister?" Hearing this, Salvador glared at him with eyes full of killing intent. "So the reason you attacked this man is because he's an accomplice of the kidnappers?" Ian also shot him a glare. Philip, sweating profusely, denied it. No. He lowered his head, stammering under that murderous gaze, "That's not it." Salvador raised a hand and ordered, "Deke, stay here and keep an eye on him." The man placed a hand on his chest and replied, "Yes, master." He clasped his hands behind his back and walked up to Ian. "Young mage, I apologize for taking up your precious time." Salvador smiled brightly, offering a hand. "Let me help you out as compensation." By the riverbank, Evan and Henry were desperately trying to row the boat away. Ian and Salvador's group quickly caught up. A man pointed at the boat. "That's where the witness said." The man with the ponytail angrily clenched his fists. "I can't believe they escaped by boat." The person next to him also roared in anger, "What a bunch of cowards." Ian glanced over, thinking, the sun has set. Traveling by boat is very dangerous. In that case, Suddenly, a voice startled him. Everyone. Ian turned around in confusion. What's going on? Salvador, full of passion, raised a fist high. For a stranger, let us brave the night together. Bring out the boats. The people behind him clenched their fists and shouted, Knights of Santiago, protectors of the weak. We are ready to ride. Ian looked at them, thinking, so they're knights, protectors of the weak. Sounds pretty cool. He held out a hand, advising, getting on a boat right now is dangerous. Salvador smiled brightly and waved his hand. No need to be so formal. Just speak normally. Ian froze in place. I always talk like this. The man kept smiling. There he goes again. Ian watched Henry's group and started planning. I just found a hook. I'll pull the boat closer. When I do, throw the hook over there. Hearing this, Salvador gasped in surprise. Pull the boat. He held out a hand, asking in confusion, didn't you use dark magic? How can you use water magic too? He replied calmly, I've completed the beginner level in a few different magic attributes. Salvador stared at him seriously, thinking, this is strange. The mages I've seen on the battlefield could only use one attribute. His eyes sharpened as he glanced back. Besides, if he's only at the beginner level, shouldn't he be unable to cast magic yet? Ian held out a hand and began to chant. Oh, river, come to me. The knights watched in shock as blue light gathered. The water in the river immediately surged high, rushing toward the bank. Salvador's jaw dropped in amazement. That far surpasses the water magic used on the battlefield. Henry, on the boat, felt the water pulling them. What is that? What's going on? Evan, who was rowing, was also startled. The current is. Immediately after, they watched in panic as a massive wave crashed toward the boat. Under the setting sun, the boat capsized in the middle of the river. The knights gathered on the bank, looking over and cheering. Direct hit. Right at that moment, Lucy rushed over in tears and threw her arms around him. Ian, Salvador, standing behind them, widened his eyes and asked, what are you doing? Can't you see your sister is crying? Ian immediately patted Lucy's back gently. That must have been really tough. She buried her face in his chest, sobbing uncontrollably. Ian looked off to the side and let out a sigh. I need to hurry back to the inn and take a bath. He looked at the fading sunlight in the distance, thinking, but at that time, I still didn't know that a peaceful bath in this world. On the street, Bernard was riding his horse forward at full speed. Emergency! Clear the way! Shouts echoed out. Everyone, return to the inn immediately, was something Ian could never have. Hansen looked at the white smoke rising high. That smoke. It's definitely from a battle. He rode his horse toward it, his face full of worry. Has the Lord's fear come true? Hansen glanced at Bernard beside him, sighing inwardly. What a pain. Just having to drag this inexperienced young master along is a headache. He lowered his head, letting out a heavy sigh. At the source of the white smoke, noisy voices could be heard. Let me scrub your back, sir. Then I'll do this side. Ian, sitting in the tub of hot water, replied, I'm fine. Immediately after, the room's door was kicked open from the outside. Bernard quickly rushed in. What are you doing? Ian looked up, completely bewildered. Taking a bath? Hearing this, he and Hansen yelled in disbelief. Taking a bath? Bernard glanced at the boiling pot of water. In a place like this, people of the Empire rarely bathe unless it's a special occasion. His eyes sparkled, and with the place in such a mess, something definitely happened. As the eldest son of the Lord of Riverview, I have the right to be informed. Bernard walked over, visibly excited. Hey, explain this to me clearly. Salvador bowed, placing a hand on his chest, and smiled. Lord Bernard, I am Ruda. Please allow me to explain. He crossed his arms, looking annoyed. Why you? I'm asking him. The man was startled. What? Salvador lowered his head and whispered, that's because he is a mage. Bernard gasped in shock. A mage? What did you say? Immediately after, a thought flashed through his mind. Is he planning to do that? Bernard placed a hand on his chest, demanding arrogantly, Mage. I am the heir of the Kant family. Get out of the tub immediately and bow to me. Ian suddenly remembered. In this world, there's a noble culture called provoking the mage. Simply put, it's when nobles intentionally provoke a mage to test their strength. A mage who stays calm under provocation is considered weak, while a mage who gets angry is seen as truly powerful. Ian rested his hands on the edge of the tub, thinking, wait, Is this the provoking the mage thing Lucy mentioned? He crossed his arms, looking down at him, and refused. No. Bernard's mouth twisted as he yelled. What? What did you say? He trembled all over, roaring in anger. You dare refuse. Bernard marched over, furious. Someone like you dares to defy me. Ian asked calmly, why should I do as you say? He immediately struggled and ordered, Hansen, drag that fake mage out right now. Seeing Bernard being held back by Hansen, Ian praised him inwardly. Not bad acting. Then, he let out a deep sigh. In that case, Ian's eyes flashed as he asked coldly, fake? What did you say? Bernard looked at the glowing lights surrounding them, absolutely terrified. What is this? Ian raised a hand high. Rise. All the objects around them immediately floated up into the air. Bernard held up his hands, panicking as he apologized. Stop. I've seen enough of your power. I apologize for my rudeness. Right after, in the blink of an eye, everything crashed to the ground. Ian let out a sigh of relief, thinking, that should be enough to fix his attitude. He froze when he saw Bernard collapse to the ground, bawling his eyes out. Ian's face stiffened, staring blankly at the scene. I'm screwed. Did I overdo it? What if the Kant family gets mad and executes me? The next day, inside Wanza's magnificent castle, sunlight streamed in from outside. His voice echoed, thank you for accepting my invitation. Wanz recalled the sight of Bernard crying and said, and I heard my son caused trouble for you yesterday. He picked up his teacup, apologizing sincerely. Ian quickly replied, no, I should be the one apologizing for going too far. Wanz looked at him in confusion. By the way, I heard you have a companion. Did you come alone? He replied casually. She had some business to take care of at the inn. Ian recalled the scene before he left. There's no need for Lucy to show her face. Salvador smiled brightly and assured him, we're keeping a very close eye on your sister. Inside the grand room, Wanza's voice echoed, therefore. He looked at him seriously and asked, by the way, may I ask your master's name? Ian replied nonchalantly, it's Lady Eredit. Wanz gasped in surprise. I've heard of the rising star of Grawat. Did your master head south? He leaned back on the sofa, confirming, because that's where the Magic Academy is. He asked in shock, so she didn't head toward the Principality of Ponga or the Principality of Jobel, right? Ian's face tensed up. What do you mean? Wanz pondered for a long moment before continuing. The situation has been quite tense lately. He froze upon hearing the man add, it seems the Principality of Ponga is targeting Rakan. Hearing this, Ian couldn't help but worry. That means a war might break out. Wanz looked at him coldly and asked, are you heading south too? He furrowed his brows and denied it. No, I'll be heading east to search for mysteries. He held out a hand. Therefore, then, allow me to give you a gift. Ian looked over in confusion. A gift? He looked at the securely locked wooden chest on the table. What is it? Wanz pointed at the chest and said, open it and see. Ian gently opened the lid and looked inside. Immediately after, his eyes widened in shock. This is a staff. Wanza's voice echoed as he explained, that is a staff used by a wind attribute Grand Mage. He looked at the wooden box calmly and added, its name is Windwalker. Ian stared at it, unconsciously repeating, Windwalker. He immediately reached out and grabbed the staff inside. Wanz smiled in praise as he watched Ian grip the staff tightly. It suits you. He admired it for a moment. It looks like a normal staff. It feels like I just received a mage's starter gear. Ian's lips curled into a smile, feeling happy. But getting a gift still feels nice. Wanz crossed his arms and laughed heartily. This is a token of gratitude for overlooking my son's rudeness. Do you like it? He gently stroked the staff and replied, yes, thank you, sir. Inside the castle, Ian expressed his sincere gratitude. I accept it with gratitude. That afternoon, a loud shout echoed outside the inn. Ian. He grabbed his staff and ran out. What's wrong? Lucy looked anxious as she grabbed Ian's hand. It's urgent. Her voice was filled with panic. We need you. Seeing the creature in front of him, Ian furrowed his brows in confusion. A crow? Salvador walked over and said loudly, the hunter caught it this morning. He was going to eat it, but your companion stopped him. Lucy smiled gleefully like a child. You're Ian Eredit Raven, and this is a crow, a raven. Don't you think it's destiny or something? Hearing this, Ian looked at her even more weirdly. Seeing him stay silent, Lucy continued to pester him. Hey, it's destiny, right? Ian sighed and coldly turned away. Sorry for the trouble. Just eat it. Her voice pitched up in dissatisfaction. Hey, you have no tact at all. I'm the mage, not you, right? What are you even talking about? Waiting for just that, Ashril immediately grabbed the crow's cage. Thanks for confirming. Then we'll have it for lunch. But just as he turned away, Ian suddenly heard a desperate scream. Please save me. Kind human. He immediately rushed back. Wait. Ian quickly used magic to speak with animals. What are you? The crow, Oberon, cried and screamed loudly. Please save me. Ian kept trying to communicate with it while everyone looked at him weirdly. Answer me. What are you? But it just kept repeating the same phrase. Please save me. Seeing this, he fell deep into thought. It seems it doesn't understand the Moronius language. Maybe it lacks mysteries. But Ian didn't give up trying to talk to it. Hey, Oberon was busy screaming like its tail was on fire. Please help me. Don't kill me. Despite being interrupted, he remained patient. I'll help you, so shut up first. But it didn't understand, so it screamed even louder. Please, come here. Ian was thoroughly pissed off. So he yelled even louder than it did. All right, I'll help. So shut up. Only then did Oberon finally behave. Seeing this, Ian's lips unconsciously curled up. This guy? Even if he doesn't understand the words, he understands the situation. Beside him, Adrian and Deke looked at him with admiration. Sir Mage, are you talking to the crow? Yeah. Ian relayed its words. That's right. It says it wants to be saved. For now, just leave it to me. Hearing this, Lucy puffed out her chest proudly. See, I told you this crow wasn't normal. Salvador smiled kindly like an elder. It seems the young lady is like you, able to see mysteries. She held her head high, almost parallel to the ceiling. Well, I haven't studied it yet, but I probably have a talent for magic. Ian could only roll his eyes in exasperation. Here we go again. After that, he took Oberon away and bandaged it up. Ian looked at its silly appearance and smirked. That should do it, right? Lucy couldn't take her eyes off the crow. Yeah, it'll heal quickly. Her face fell, looking sad. So what are you going to do with this crow? Give it back to the hunter? After everything that happened, Ian couldn't bring himself to do it. Then it'll get eaten. As if understanding, Oberon suddenly hopped onto his hand. Then it begged pitifully, looking just like a puppy. Please don't abandon me. The humans here are terrifying. Oberon's tears flowed like a broken faucet. Please. Ian's eyebrows almost tied into a knot. What a pain. Ian didn't say anything else, just placed Oberon on his shoulder. Seeing this, Lucy's eyes immediately lit up. Are you taking it with you? He nodded slightly. Actually, I'm just keeping it temporarily. At least until it fully recovers. She got excited again like a child. Then we have to name it. Ian hadn't thought about this, so he was momentarily stunned. Name it. Lucy leaned in, happily suggesting, how about Obsidian? Because its eyes are pitch black. Seeing the crow's perverted look, he could only feel helpless. This guy is thrilled because Lucy is paying attention to him. But Ian was too lazy to remember, so he immediately corrected her. Too long. Let's call it Oberon. She only cared about having a new companion, so she readily agreed. He reached out and gently patted Oberon's head. From now on, your name is Oberon. A second later, it flipped, flapping its wings and squawking loudly. Offer your tributes. Accept my grace. Ian didn't even bother hiding his disgust, suddenly acting all arrogant. Must be happy, huh? Suddenly, Lucy suggested, Oh, right, Ian. I was thinking, how about we travel with the knights? He looked at her intently. The knights? It was obvious she was a bit worried about the upcoming journey. I think it's better to travel alone. Ian suddenly pictured the muscular builds of those guys. Makes sense. Bandits wouldn't dare attack easily. But what if they aren't heading the same way as us? As if noticing Ian's hesitation, Salvador pushed the door open and walked in. What are you worried about? He was startled. Elder. He sat down opposite Ian. Even if you're a mage, traveling alone with a woman is dangerous. How about we make a deal? He was completely confused. A deal? The man smiled warmly. That's right. Actually, we're on our way to hunt a monster that appeared in Baron Katina's territory. Hearing these words, Ian immediately tensed up. A monster? Salvador's voice grew noticeably darker. Do you know of a creature called a manticore? It's a monster that looks like a giant lion. Manticore. A notorious killer, brutal and bloodthirsty. Ian vaguely understood his intention. Yes. Don't tell me you want me to go monster hunting with you. But Salvador shook his head in denial. No, we don't want to drag you into danger. Of course, if you want to help, we won't stop you. Hearing this, Ian stayed silent for a long time. A moment later, he suddenly stood up from his chair and just walked away, glaring. Then I refuse. Salvador laughed out loud and quickly grabbed his shoulder. At least hear me out. What we need from you isn't hunting. Ian sat back down. Then what? Salvador slowly explained their background. Actually, we are a night order established by a sect of the Angelic Church. However, when we said we were going to hunt the manticore, Salvador's face showed clear sorrow. It seems the priests in the Count's territory forced a mage to help. That probably upset them, so we want you to step in and mediate with that mage. A mage's words will carry more weight than a knight's. Ian lowered his eyes, deep in thought. Not bad. As long as I sweet-talk that mage, we'll have knights escorting us. After some consideration, he finally agreed. Then, let's go together. This might be the best decision Ian had ever made. Traveling with the knights was truly comfortable. The members of the Knights of Santiago were all good people. They were also strong enough that Ian didn't have to lift a finger. No pressure at all. But, if there was anything to complain about. While Ian was eating roast meat, Deke suddenly spoke up loudly. Sir Mage, do you want to study the Holy Scripture? The other two knights immediately chimed in enthusiastically. Let's study together. I'll join too. But of course, Ian bluntly refused. No thanks. All three of them yelled in unison. Why not? He ignored them and kept eating, even though I said it was comfortable. But they keep trying to drag me into their religion. Salvador chuckled and sat down opposite Ian. What a pity. He chewed his meat, looking confused. What is? He had already seen Ian's potential. If you wanted to, you could have become a cleric of the sect. Hearing this, he fell deep into thought again. The voice of God. If I can really talk to God, maybe I can ask why I was reincarnated and about the status window. After thinking it over, Ian walked up to Deke. Sir Deke, about studying the Holy Scripture. Can I join too? That whole night, he taught Ian very diligently. He studied with intense focus, seemingly tireless. Right then, a warm voice echoed. Great attitude. Ian didn't even bother looking up. Yes, thanks for the compliment. Hearing this, Deke's eyes widened in surprise. What are you talking about? He was completely confused about what was happening. You just said I had a great attitude. The man was scared out of his wits. I didn't say anything. Did you hear something? Ian thought he was hallucinating from sleepiness. But I clearly heard someone speak. Right then, a thought flashed through his mind. That wasn't a human voice. The voice echoed again, carrying a hint of teasing. Who knows? Ian suddenly jumped up, startling Deke. The voice still echoed in his head. Could it be that I'm not what you'd call human? Ian pointed at the sky and shouted, You're God, right? A massive vortex above suddenly spoke. I suppose so. He gritted his teeth in anger, speechless. You. Ian refused to give up, continuously questioning. What is that status window? Why did you reincarnate me into this world? But the only response was a mocking laugh echoing through the sky. He roared with all his might in frustration. Answer me. Suddenly, a streak of blue light shot down and pierced right through Ian. The sky then cleared up just like before. His face darkened, realizing something was wrong. Don't tell me. Ian felt dizzy, a sense of emptiness washing over him. You really left? He yelled so hard the veins on his forehead popped. Hello. Getting no answer, Ian jumped up in anger. Hey, God, come back here right now. The soldier next to him quickly tried to stop him. Hey, while Ian kept struggling, I said get down here right now. The other soldiers also joined in to restrain him. Please calm down. Hey, what's going on? After that, he studied the Holy Scripture like a madman. The Creator, also known as God, threw me into this world just to stand by and laugh at me. Ian got no answers and could only curse. Damn it. He wanted to ask God directly, but his holy magic level was too low to communicate. He stood up again. I guess I have no choice. Then Ian quietly left. I have to find more mysteries and accumulate points, just so I can talk to that damn God again. And as a result, he received a new skill. Holy magic skill. The ability to converse with the elegant, noble, divine, beautiful, and absolute ruler of this world. Well done, Ian. And the punishment came immediately. Please pay attention to God. Learn more and understand him better. The more you care, the happier God will be. The elegant, noble, divine, and beautiful ruler of this world. Ian closed the book with tears in his eyes. Is this really the God who gave me this skill? At this moment, Salvador swung his sword, taking down an intruder. With just one strike, the man quickly collapsed. Covered in blood, he glanced at the people nearby. Hey, new mage. Is everything okay? Ian timidly raised a hand, his voice sounding like a mosquito. Yes, but looking at the injured people lying all over the ground, fear welled up in his heart. Of course not. Because you guys wiped them all out. Salvador looked over at Lucy, who was stammering nearby. You're not hurt, are you? Her voice stuttered. I'm fine. What about you, Elder? Night slowly fell. Ian looked up at the starry sky and upgraded holy magic. A few days later, as the first rays of sunlight shone down, the sharp sound of clashing swords echoed in the forest. Below, both sides were fighting fiercely. Salvador raised his sword high with a triumphant face. We have destroyed the evil bandits. The soldiers under his command also cheered, fired up. Hansen led the way, pointing out the path. Master, the road splits into two. It seemed he was very familiar with this route. The east leads to the Count's castle, and the west is the forest where the manticore appeared. Salvador pointed in one direction. The forest where the mage lives is this way. Then he waved his hand, calling everyone. Let's go. Ian suddenly hesitated and asked to stay back. Please wait a moment. Salvador seemed to understand Ian's worry and comforted him. No matter how old I get, I won't lose to things like this. He felt a weight lifted off his shoulders and chatted comfortably. I heard you used to be a mercenary. That's amazing. He gripped his sword hilt firmly, looking confident. I may look like this now, but in my youth, I had quite a reputation. Then Salvador swung his sword with great power. That's why I use the title Elder. There are too many fools who judge me just by hearing my name and try to pick a fight. Ian's eyes lowered, deep in thought. So he's famous enough that everyone recognizes his name? Then he turned to Lucy, who was timidly standing nearby. Lucy, we'll go meet the mage first, then head to the Katina territory, okay? But she refused. No, I'll go ahead. Ian looked worried. Will you be okay alone? To reassure him, she smiled and quickly turned away. I'm not a child. Going this way will get me to my uncle's place quickly. Lucy even waved cheerfully. See you later, Ian. He watched her back, still feeling anxious. Will she really be okay? Ian couldn't take his eyes off Lucy, muttering to himself. I have to finish this quickly and catch up with Lucy. What they received was brand new armor and full equipment. Marcel scratched his head, looking away guiltily. Since we received money from the church, even Ian had to praise them inwardly. No wonder everyone is wearing such nice armor. He threw an arm around his shoulder, acting very friendly. But we won't die. They'll probably spare us out of respect for you. Ian froze, thinking, this is my first time meeting a mage other than my master. I wonder if it'll be okay? His thoughts were justified, because a mage only needed one curse to bring fatal disaster upon these brutes. Suddenly, Salvador noticed Lucy wasn't there and asked, where did your sister go all by herself? He replied calmly, just for a bit. I'll catch up with her soon. Ian quickly changed the subject. More importantly, we're about to meet that mage, right? He threw an arm around his shoulder and smirked. Are you mentally prepared? Ian looked annoyed. Mentally prepared? Salvador's smile faded, his voice turning somewhat serious. Mages are known to be unpredictable, right? They're annoyed with the church, who knows what they might do. Ian glared at him and demanded, why do we have to clean up the church's mess? Salvador's face turned pale, sweating profusely. Well, he remembered the image of the witch Monty Campbell, a plant attribute grand mage, happily cooking. That stew looks so good. Damien barged in with his lackeys out of nowhere. Mage Monty, please help our Night Order hunt the monster. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Please don't forget, this is an official request from the church. Monty bared her teeth, showing only a few left. Good grief. She kept stirring the pot. If you want my help, at least eat what I cook and act like it's delicious. Here. Ian followed Salvador to a small house deep in the forest. An apothecary. He nodded slightly in confirmation. Yes, Monty Campbell is a famous apothecary. The reason behind that is simple. Not only can she control plants, but she can also concoct terrifying poisons from plant toxins. Speaking of this, Salvador carefully reminded him. Since we need highly toxic poison to hunt the manticore, this is perfect. Suddenly, a A strong scent hit their noses. What's that smell? Ian paused for a beat, completely surprised. Wait, this smell is... From inside the small house in the forest, the scent wafted out. And immediately, Mani appeared in the flesh with a grating laugh. I've been waiting for the warriors of Santiago. At this moment, Salvador frowned slightly at her greeting. Mani Campbell. Mani just kept inviting them in. I'm so glad you came. She looked at the pot of stew on the table. Come, enjoy the feast I've prepared. A moment later, Ian's group managed to get inside Mani's house. Everyone was served a bowl of stew with a pungent smell. This smell is too strong. Salvador still refused to take his hand off his nose. You don't need to prove your strength this way. She sighed, as if trying to explain. I'm simply treating my guests to a rare dish made from plants I carefully cultivated. But a second later, she provoked them. But if you're not guests, you can leave. These words left him momentarily speechless. On the other side, Louis had to pinch his nose just to take a spoonful. Marcel, sitting next to him, only dared to watch. Unexpectedly, the man couldn't hold it in and threw up a few times. Mani saw everything. Did I go a bit too far? That thought suddenly stopped when she glanced over at Ian. By the way, why is that guy eating so much? He ate as if he had never tasted anything so delicious before. Who is that guy? Swallowing a whole bowl of garlic soup like that? Out of curiosity, Mani hurried over and asked, Are you okay? Ian didn't forget to grab a chicken leg while his eyes sparkled. It's delicious. These words left her stunned for a second. Delicious? A sense of existential doubt welled up inside her. Impossible. He picked up an unpeeled garlic clove and exclaimed, Yes. Especially this garlic, it's really good. Right after saying that, Ian popped it into his mouth. The onlookers froze, including Mani. She ran over, grabbed his shoulders tightly, and screamed, Stop. I've been an apothecary for 40 years, and I've never seen anyone as weird as you. Ian's eyes widened, looking completely clueless. Weird? Mani crossed her arms, her gaze turning scrutinizing. What is your name? He didn't hide anything, directly stating his full name. Ian Eredit Raven. Hearing that name, she gasped in shock. Eredit? Mani's trembling finger pointed at Ian. Then you are? She emphasized her next words very clearly. The disciple of the fire, Mage Eredit? And so, the story was recounted until night fell. Please forgive me for testing you. Mani's voice had become much gentler. Consider this an apology. Eat as much as you like. Ian glanced at the plate of food neatly placed on the table. The chicken stew is really good too. Right then, she brought up the main topic. You're planning to hunt the manticore? Someone confirmed. That's right. Instantly, Mani's face darkened. It won't be easy. According to a fairly reliable source, Baron Katina sent hunters to catch the monster, but they were all wiped out by that thing. Unexpectedly, Salvador was very resolute. I'm prepared for that. Mani asked back, Have you ever hunted a manticore before? He replied in a deep voice, A few times in my youth. She turned to Ian. What about you? He was a bit surprised. Mani's eyes narrowed dangerously. Taught by Eredit, you must be a capable mage by now, right? She offered a suggestion. Why don't you lend some of your wisdom to the knights? A memory flooded into Ian's mind. What a mage should do. Someone's voice echoed, explaining. That's right. Every mage will eventually have to interact with others, even if they don't want to. Eredit smiled faintly and instructed, You must absolutely never take those moments lightly. Back to the present. He was quite troubled. Of course, I don't have to go hunt the monster myself. But if I refuse, bad rumors might spread in the Mage Association. Because the Mage Association is an organization founded by mages, led by the Magic Academy, to ensure the proper use of mysteries. The more Ian thought about it, the harder it felt. If that happens, I won't have the face to see my master. I might not even be able to ask other mages for help when I need it. He glanced at the group beside him. They all placed their trust in Ian. I guess I have no choice. So he quickly made a decision. I will go with you. The next day, the forest was somewhat quiet. Salvador and Ian led the group deep inside. The atmosphere was a bit tense. I hope Lucy is okay. Right then, Oberon flapped its wings and flew back to report. Master, I found it. It landed on his shoulder and added, The manticore is over there. Salvador, standing nearby, looked a bit worried. Ian, is something wrong? Ian pointed at Oberon and replied, According to this guy, it's this way. By now, Salvador was looking at it with different eyes. What an amazing ability. Meanwhile, he glanced at Oberon as it chirped. When it landed on my shoulder, I made it familiar with human language. Like necromancy and summoning magic, it all happened in the blink of an eye. They continued following the path Oberon pointed out. I can feel a very strong killing intent. Suddenly, Ian spoke up out of curiosity. Elder, can I ask you something? He replied casually, what is it? He quickly asked his question. If the manticore is also a monster. Ian frowned slightly and paused for a beat. Can I persuade it? Salvador thought for a moment before replying with 2 words. Hard to say. Mani added, the manticore isn't the type you can talk to. He put on a serious face and mocked. What does Mani know about summoning magic? She was so angry she literally jumped. I know what mysteries are, okay. Then Mani threatened him. If you really manage to persuade it, I'll tell her Reddit. However, this statement went against natural logic. Instead of praising me, she's going to tattle to my master? Right then, Deke shouted loudly. Master! Over there! Everyone immediately looked in that direction. What caught their eyes was the killing intent radiating from a pair of glowing eyes. Because the manticore was right there. Salvador and the others stared deep into the forest. It's looking this way. At this moment, Ian was a bit tense. Salvador continued to instruct, you two, stay close to me at all times. Mani quickly replied. Suddenly, someone called out, making Salvador turn his head sharply. Master! A soldier stepped up to him and reported, I've coated all the weapons with poison. He then presented 3 arrows drenched in Mani's special poison. A second later, Salvador decisively fired the 3 arrows deep into the forest. Fire. Watching this scene, Ian just stayed silent. Who knows what he was thinking? The arrows shot forward at lightning speed. Suddenly, Ian felt a prickling sensation all over his body. His eyes rolled back, turning completely white. The arrows hit the manticore's body and bounced right off. Ian stepped forward and reported, the arrows hit its neck and bounced off. Salvador said in confusion, impossible. The soldier asked in panic, Master, what should we do? The manticore stepped out of the shadows. Its eyes glowed brightly as it laughed and said, attack again. Ian looked at it, fear rising in his heart. That laugh gives me goosebumps. At this moment, he realized, the manticore is right in front of us. There's no time to reapply the poison. Ian clenched his fists. Looks like there's no other way. A second later, his whole demeanor turned ferocious. He smirked aggressively. Everyone standing behind him was stunned, not having processed what was happening yet. Mani looked at Ian's back and marveled. That kid actually did it. In front of everyone, the manticore unexpectedly stood still in silence. A moment later, it slowly walked forward and praised him. I didn't expect a human to dare speak to me. That's rare. Hearing this, Ian felt a bit relieved and told himself, all right, stay calm, just like before. Then he reached out a hand and said, good thing you understand. I am Ian, a mage. But the manticore bluntly cursed, get lost. These words left Ian dumbfounded, his body stiffening. A second later, the manticore mercilessly threw feces at Ian's head. Eat it, you stupid human. Ian froze, his face darkening. He couldn't help but speak up. What's wrong with you? The manticore nodded upon hearing this. Yeah, that's more like it. Drop that respectful tone. It furrowed its brows and growled, if you want something from me. Ian also grew tense. The manticore continued, spit it out. Come here. At this point, Ian didn't hesitate to point at it and say, your scalp. After that, only the manticore's excited laughter echoed through the deep forest. Looking at Ian's bewildered expression, it praised him in amusement. You're straightforward. I like that. A second later, the manticore bared its sharp fangs and proposed, Mage Ian, how about you team up with me and tear these humans to shreds? These words left Ian shocked, his eyes wide open. What? The manticore sank into a fantasy of fresh blood. I'll enjoy the meat. It painted a picture of pleasure for Ian. And you'll get gold, silver, and women. The manticore continued coldly. When you get bored of the women, I'll kill them. Saying that, it licked its lips disgustingly. It'll be very fun. Hearing this, Ian was speechless. Unbelievable. Then he spat in disgust right at the manticore's feet. Just hearing that makes me sick. Not stopping there, Ian even flipped the manticore off. You bastard. Making it exclaim you. The soldiers witnessing this action were equally bewildered. At this moment, the manticore stood up straight and said coldly, "Fine." Because of that, in an instant, it charged straight at Ian. The manticore flew into a rage and roared fiercely, "You deserve to die?" Ian froze, only having time to realize the Imperial language. At this moment, Mani finally gave the order. "Rise." She stomped her foot hard on the ground. A glowing sapling immediately sprouted. In an instant, sturdy branches quickly extended from the young shoot, wrapping around the manticore. Mani narrowed her eyes, observing. After a moment, it was completely swallowed by those sturdy branches. Seeing this, Salvador yelled anxiously, "Mani, what did you do?" Mani replied casually, "Are you blind?" "I just ate the manticore." Salvador continued to question, and the knights standing nearby too. Despite being a bit panicked, Mani stubbornly said, "Be serious. We're not children anymore. Handle it yourselves. And eating the manticore is the priority." Suddenly, Salvador saw something and looked up in shock. He started moving his feet. Then Salvador ran straight inside. Ian called after him in confusion. "Elder, wait." Salvador ran to the spot and asked anxiously, "Hey, is everyone okay?" Ian also arrived just in time, sweating profusely. "Master," the soldiers stammered, "we're fine, but—" Ian's eyes widened in panic. Deke was lying on the ground, his body covered in wounds, bandaged everywhere. The soldiers continued, "Deke is—" Salvador rushed over to help him up. Deke struggled to speak every word. "I'm sorry, master. We let the manticore escape." But Salvador immediately scolded him. "What are you talking about?" This scene made Ian a bit emotional, his lips pressed tightly together. His hands suddenly clenched into fists. Salvador's encouraging words continued to ring out. "You guys did your best." Ian recalled Deke's respectable moments and sighed inwardly. "I never thought I'd witness death with my own eyes. And Deke, of all people, now I truly feel it." In his mind, he pictured monsters running rampant. This is a world where monsters and martial artists are an everyday occurrence. They plunge everything into a sea of fire. The death I only saw in stories has now become a reality right before my eyes. After thinking for a long time, Ian quickly walked toward everyone. He sat down, grabbed Deke's hand, and called out softly, "Deke." Ian smiled warmly and brought up the words from the past. "You told me this when you taught me the Holy Scripture, right?" Amidst the vast blue sky, Deke's words flowed melodiously. "Believe from the bottom of your heart and pray. The heavens will open." Hearing these words, tears rolled down the man's cheeks. A moment later, they were surrounded by a mystical light. "Let us pray together." Ian's eyes lowered as he whispered, "Almighty heavens, are you watching?" Sitting next to Deke, he continued to mutter, "Your most devoted follower is right here. He's dying. Aren't you going to do anything?" Suddenly, a brilliant cluster of light appeared and spoke. "Your heavens are right here, Ian." Before Ian could understand what was happening, the heavens continued to offer. "If that's what Ian wants, I'll give it a try." Then, in an instant, the cluster of light in the sky became blindingly bright across the horizon. Seeing this scene, Salvador smiled and called out, "Ian." At this moment, Ian had let go of Deke's hand. Salvador's words faltered. "You." As the blue light gradually faded, Ian stared in shock at his glowing palms. A deep, sweet voice entered the man's subconscious. "Wake up, Deke." A miraculous light surrounded the goddess. She slowly reached out her hand as if to support him. Deke widened his eyes in shock and muttered, "What? The goddess?" His heart was filled with turbulent thoughts. "It's so good to see you." But even so, Deke trembled in disbelief. "Why is the goddess here? So this is heaven." She closed her eyes, sensing the anxiety within him, and gently instructed, "You still have work to do, Deke." He jolted up, confused. "I have to." The goddess gently extended her arm in the sparkling light, guiding him. "Spread my will further. Help the weak, bring them happiness." Deke's eyes widened in utter shock at her next words. "And assist my apostle, Ian." A blinding light gradually appeared before his eyes along with her final message. "That is my will." A second later, Deke woke up from the illusion. His vision blurred, slowly recognizing familiar faces. Lewis was the first to notice. "He's awake." Salvador was also shocked and quickly called his name. "Deke, you're awake." Deke's body was soaked in fresh blood, and he woke up in a panic. "Where's this?" While he was still dazed and unfamiliar, a voice called out from afar. "Deke." It was Ian, holding his staff, smirking teasingly. How does it feel to return from the dead? As soon as he saw him, Deke couldn't hold back his tears and rushed over. Ian. He was startled. What are you doing? The man knelt at his feet, full of gratitude for Ian's grace. You saved me according to the will of that great being, right? He glanced at the kneeling man, looking a bit awkward. But honestly, Ian couldn't deny it. Well, I could only use holy magic because the goddess of the angelic church lent me her power. So he's not entirely wrong. So he nodded in acknowledgement. How did you know? The goddess told me to save you because you still have a lot of work to do. Deke jolted, recalling her words in the illusion. You still have work to do. He seemed to realize something surprising and full of admiration. Then he prostrated himself at Ian's feet, as respectfully as possible. I bow before you, the apostle sent by the goddess. The people traveling with them also thought Deke was being ridiculous. There's no doubt Ian used magic to save Deke, but calling him the goddess's apostle. He must be hallucinating. Let's just observe for a while. But everyone also breathed a sigh of relief, feeling at peace. Mani stood with her hands on her hips, unexpectedly chiming in. Everyone almost died, yet you're still so full of energy. After regaining his spirit, Salvador rallied his comrades. All right, shall we continue hunting the manticore? Everyone was fired up and ready to hit the road again. Yes, sir. Ian also started laying out a different plan with his pet crow. I'll have Oberon scout ahead. Saying that, he looked a bit worried. Is that okay? It might run into danger. After the crow soared into the blue sky, he quietly replied with one word. Salvador truly didn't understand his intention. Remembering the manticore's dangerous face, Ian became even more determined. He glanced at everyone with a serious expression. I know the thing isn't some ordinary trash, so we have to beat it to a pulp. In the town, mournful screams echoed everywhere, along with scattered ruins. The manticore attacked a village, terrifying the residents. Monster! People panicked and fled in all directions. A young man holding his father's hand suddenly saw his father fall backward. Roland looked back in terror and shouted, Father! But he couldn't do anything. The manticore was standing right behind, just a few steps away from his father. Peasant was just a few steps away. In a moment of crisis, Roland saw a three-pronged pitchfork nearby. Without wasting another second, he pointed the pitchfork at the monster's face and threatened, Leave this town at once. Even though Roland tried to calm himself, his whole body trembled uncontrollably. You monster! The manticore sneered in contempt. So this human is your father? Roland was even more terrified. How can it speak human language? Its deep voice echoed challengingly. I'll make you a good offer. Kill your father and bring him to me. If you do, I'll spare the lives of all the other humans. Roland trembled more and more, but he didn't agree to such an outrageous demand. Do you think I'd agree to that? The manticore smiled grotesquely. Then there's no other way. It roared loudly, baring its fangs and claws as it lunged forward. Die? In the critical moment, he used his own body as a shield to protect Uncle Kien. Father! Right at the crucial moment, a piercing arrow shot past. Blood started pouring from the manticore's body. A new wound was clearly visible. Salvador arrived just in time. As soon as he appeared, he fought the manticore to stop it from harming any more innocent lives. The father and son looked up in confusion. The Knights of Santiago. Salvador looked at the group behind him and shouted authoritatively, Prepare for battle. The group quickly formed a formation, aiming straight at the monster in the center. Even though the manticore was injured in one eye, its fighting spirit remained fierce. It bared its teeth in fury. You animals, are you that eager to die? Ian appeared in the meadow, bathed in sunlight, and smirked. What a stupid, desperate fool. Ian looked at it with utter contempt. Still struggling uselessly at this point. The manticore, being mocked, lost its temper. Shut up, Mage. But he still treated it like a thorn in his side. Is that just the barking of a loser? All talk and no action? He successfully provoked the manticore, making it charge at him. Insolent. Saying that, it lunged forward at lightning speed. And all of this was within Ian's calculations. The manticore kept charging forward in a rage. Just as it got close, Mani suddenly appeared out of nowhere and blocked Ian. She muttered a few incantations. Oh, growing wood. The grass and trees suddenly moved and grew taller. Vines instantly formed into ropes and wrapped around both sides of the manticore. What is this? Salvador and his troops seized the opportunity to attack. Now, the soldiers grabbed their weapons, ready to fight. They quickly launched attacks aimed at the manticore's body. It roared and struggled, using such petty tricks. But the plan didn't stop there. Monty muttered his name. "Ian, your turn." Ian looked at the enemy with cold eyes. He snapped his fingers and pointed his staff forward. "Oh, fire." The arrogance in the manticore's eyes was replaced by sheer terror. Burn. A fire suddenly erupted, burning the manticore inside. In the end, only terrified screams echoed in the evening wind. Ian looked coldly at the raging fire, now just smoldering ashes. After the fire, the town returned to its usual peace. The residents bowed in unison without needing to be told. "Thank you so much, knights." Salvador replied politely on their behalf. "We only did what we had to do." Meanwhile, Ian looked at him, shining in his aura, with a strange expression. Oberon quickly whispered in his ear, "Master, are you being left out?" Ian, embarrassed and angry, whispered back, "Shut up." Actually, he already had a vague answer in his mind. They're probably scared of me because I turned the manticore into a fireball. But right then, footsteps pulled Ian back to reality. Roland and his father approached and spoke respectfully. "Sir Mage, thank you for saving us." Ian was so startled by the situation that he was speechless. His mind was a mess of confusion. "I didn't do it to be thanked, but..." While he was lost in thought, Salvador joined in just in time. "Ian." He didn't hesitate to pour out a stream of flowery words. "You were truly impressive. We caught the manticore, all thanks to you." The sudden enthusiasm caught Ian off guard, so he awkwardly replied with a standard response. "I just did exactly what Monty said." Seeing a man old enough to be his father acting so subservient made Ian even more flustered. "Please raise your head." His tone left Salvador slightly stunned. It's rare to see someone with such terrifying power have a personality like this. He stared intently at Ian's face and thought to himself, someone like him might become a big shot that even nobles would be ashamed to face. Suddenly, hurried footsteps approached. A group of soldiers walked toward Ian and Salvador, questioning them. "Are you the ones who caught the manticore?" Salvador admitted without hesitation. "That's right." "And you are?" One of them quickly replied. "Apologies for the late introduction. We are knights directly under the castle." Ian's curiosity was piqued by the specific term, castle. The man gestured to him while speaking. "Yes. If you don't mind, please come with us. Baron Katina has requested to invite you to the castle." As soon as the group was illuminated by the chandelier, a deep voice echoed in their ears. "Welcome, brave warriors. I didn't expect you to stand up against the monster in the name of the heavens." Katina swirled his wine glass, enthusiastically pouring out formalities. Truly righteous souls. Salvador awkwardly raised his glass, politely declining. "No, it wasn't that big of a deal." Katina immediately sighed in return. "What a pity." He looked toward the group eating and drinking, making a sarcastic remark. "If only this castle had knights like you." Saying that, Katina quickly shifted his focus to another important figure. "That's right, Mage Monty. You can rest assured, I won't let those clerics touch the forest where you live." Having received his guarantee, she declared loudly, "Of course." After beating around the bush, Katina finally turned to the main character. "Also Mage Ian. I've heard my niece talk about you." But before he could finish his sentence, he was left speechless by the way Ian was eating like he was starving in the famine of 45. Only when Oberon couldn't stand it anymore and whispered a reminder did Ian stop. "That guy is calling you, master." He instinctively blurted out, "What?" His overly casual attitude froze Katina in place. How dare he show such an attitude towards me? Sensing the man's displeasure, Ian's eyes flickered slightly. He quickly did damage control before the atmosphere got worse. "Sorry, the food was so good I didn't hear you. I was just responding to the crow." Only then did Katina smile awkwardly in satisfaction. "I see." He took the opportunity to start his monologue again. "I heard you took care of my niece." As soon as he finished speaking, the servant beside him blinded Ian with a dazzling chest. He stammered for a while before uttering a word. "This is..." But looking inside, his mind clearly had the answer. A grimoire. Detailed instructions flashed through Ian's mind. "Just tear it in half, and the magic inside will activate immediately." He carefully lifted it up to admire it. The more he looked, the more his mind spun. "Amazing. I can feel the high quality in every single word." Katina waited for Ian to snap out of it before showing off gleefully. How is it? Do you like it? I prepared it especially for you. Ian didn't hold back, hugging the treasure to his chest and thanking him immediately. Thank you for such a precious gift. He generously played along. It's nothing. Katina rubbed his thumb and index finger together and continued to express himself. You brought Lucy back safely. Compared to that, this is nothing. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly snapped his fingers. The door, as if by magic, slowly opened a small crack. Lucy walked in, looking absolutely stunning, under the gaze of dozens of eyes. Only Ian ruined the moment by holding back a snort, secretly marveling in his mind. That hat, what is that? The more he looked, the more he felt his fashion sense was being trampled on. Where on earth did she get a hat like that? Lucy cleared her throat to gather her courage. A second later, she blushed and asked a very bland question. Long time no see. Have you been well? And Ian replied, even more blandly. Yeah, long time no see. Salvador caught a whiff of romance and teased loudly. Oh, so she's not your sister, but your lover? Ian quickly picked up his wine glass to hide his embarrassment. It's not like that. It's complicated. Katina didn't give him time to recover and chimed in. Ian, I have a proposal for you. He looked up mechanically and asked, what is it? He glanced at Lucy and said calmly, in the journey to avenge my niece. Can you lend me your strength? Only then did Ian finally understand. It's true that the only free things that fall from the sky are rain and bird poop. So that's why he gave me the grimoire. I don't have to risk my life on the battlefield either. Ian quickly composed himself and started calculating. I just need to provide moderate magic support like when dealing with the manticore. If things go well, I can even get double the reward from both the Count and Lucy. Since there were benefits, Ian wasn't stupid enough to refuse. If you need the help of a humble mage like me, he looked up and declared very clearly, I will accompany you. 3 days later, voices echoed outside the castle. My uncle is very sorry he couldn't see everyone off because he has to prepare for the expedition. It's fine. Even though she was reassured, Lucy still politely promised, when everyone returns to the Terrian territory, I will personally welcome you. Salvador solemnly held her hand and replied, I'm looking forward to it. Ian, standing nearby, was silently thinking about the trade that had taken place. The number of knights has decreased significantly after being mobilized by Count Katina. Suddenly, Salvador spoke up, pulling him back to the present. Ian, thank you for everything. He turned his attention to him and replied, me too. Salvador took the opportunity to subtly suggest, when you have time, come to Jifa Island. I'll introduce you to some mysteries you might be interested in. Just a hint, and Ian already looked very interested. Jifa Island. He confidently explained in detail. It's a floating island on the Coral Sea. Just say you're looking for Salvador, and everyone will definitely welcome you. Ian asked blankly, is that your real name? He easily admitted, it doesn't matter if I tell you. Suddenly, he placed a hand on his chest and introduced himself solemnly. My name is Salvador of the Arcus family. Lucy's eyes widened as she repeated, Salvador of Arcus. She stammered, confirming again. Impossible. Salvador of the White Wolf. He felt awkward at her enthusiasm and brushed it off. There's no need to remember an old man's name. Ian, not catching on, asked naively White Wolf. Lucy looked at him like he was an idiot and scolded, you don't know? The White Wolf mercenaries, who once flourished under the Emperor. To their leader, the Emperor at the time bestowed the supreme title of Swordmaster. Lucy suddenly pointed forward and gasped in shock. Then this person is. Salvador awkwardly scratched his face when she revealed his profession. A swordmaster. Seeing her so shocked, Ian asked, what's with the reaction? Lucy suddenly exclaimed, he's a legend. A living legend. Seeing this, he just nodded indifferently. Yeah, a legend. Salvador burst out laughing at this. Just like the rumors. Hearing this, Ian looked confused. What do you mean? An image flashed through Salvador's mind. I will be the one to defeat the Swordmaster. Thinking of this, he smiled at Ian. Never mind. Well then, we'll take our leave here. Mani, standing there, also took the opportunity to say, send my regards to a Reddit. Thank you for everything. Lucy suddenly burst into tears, gripping his hand tightly. We definitely have to meet again, okay? Ian thought helplessly. It's not like we're parting forever. Suddenly, Salvador called out loudly, Ian. He grabbed Ian's hand. Seeing this, he politely looked at Salvador. When everything is settled, I will visit Jifa Island. Salvador's face lit up as he replied, when that time comes, I'm sure we'll meet again. Then the two sides parted ways. Until that day comes, take care. Right at that moment, on Katina's side, he slowly walked up to the podium. But Katina's face couldn't hide his deep thoughts. He blankly recalled Lucy kneeling on the ground, crying and begging. Uncle, please, punish the man who murdered my mother. Thinking of this, Katina's eyes sharpened, radiating an indescribable killing intent. Graham, how dare you kill my sister, and even plan to marry Lucy? However, for the Katina territory, this situation isn't entirely bad. Using Lucy as a shield to secure its territory, then marrying her off to one of my subordinates. The Tarian territory will fall into my hands. Deep in Katina's eyes, absolute hatred was clearly visible. Back to Ian's side. He was intently watching Lucy's radiant appearance. For now, after everything is over, I'll try talking to Lucy. Katina stood on the podium with fierce determination. I, in the name of the law of this land, will judge the damn abuser of power, Graham. The soldiers below also shouted in unison, long live the Count. Katina became even more determined. Everyone follow me. The soldiers quickly received the order. Yes, sir. Night had fallen at the camp. In the kitchen area, Ian was busy doing something. Lucy and two soldiers sitting nearby asked, Ian, what are you doing? He stared at the boiling pot of water. I'm boiling the spoon. Hearing this, a thought popped into Lucy's head. Why? Are you going to boil it and eat it? Suddenly, from afar, two soldiers whispered to each other. I heard the mage is cooking soup, so stay away. Hearing them say that, he cursed inwardly. Idiots. I'm sterilizing it. Lucy, sitting nearby, heard this and looked confused. Sterilizing? Seeing her confused look, Ian explained. It's roughly like a mystery. You wouldn't understand even if I explained it. The two soldiers were even more shocked than Lucy when they heard this. A mystery. Suddenly, a voice called out from behind Ian. Sir Mage. The two soldiers awkwardly approached. Could you boil this for me too? Seeing them like this, Ian was so angry his blood boiled. I told you it's not soup. At night, the whole camp was happily hanging out together. Suddenly, Lucy let out a sigh. Hey Ian, I was thinking about something. Hearing this, Ian frowned at her. About what? Lucy glanced at him. What do you mean about what? The reward I promised you. Hearing this, Ian remembered. Oh right. Lucy looked at Ian seriously. I was going to give you gold, but you're probably tired of it, right? As soon as Lucy finished speaking, Ian's eyes widened in horror. Give me. Lucy smiled and said, so I thought long and hard about what would satisfy you. And the result is? He looked at her suspiciously. The result? Lucy explained, the magic sword, Anariso. It was a gift bestowed by the fairies to the first Baron Tarian. Legend has it that the Baron fell in love with a fairy, and wielding that sword, became the savior of the fairy realm. Hearing this, Ian's face turned ashen. What kind of fantasy novel is this? He frowned at Lucy. If Tarian has such a powerful magic sword, why are they still just barons? She immediately retorted, that was 400 years ago. Ian asked blandly, and then? And then? Lucy smiled shyly. Anariso was buried in the tomb of the first baron. So if you want to get it, you have to dig up the grave. Hearing this, Ian's jaw dropped, his face unable to hide his horror. Descendants digging up something their ancestors buried with their own hands, just to give it to someone else. Ian's face turned pale as he looked at Lucy. So your ancestral tomb is a time capsule? Caught off guard by the question, Lucy looked confused. What? Ian exclaimed curiously, I don't really get it. But it's a magic sword, right? And it looks valuable. Shouldn't your family use it instead? That's better than just leaving it as a showpiece for the Baron forever, right? Lucy pouted at Ian. I still haven't gotten anything back, but, thanks to you, I have the right to fight. And I'm very grateful for that. As she spoke, her hands gripped each other tightly. It's precious enough that I want to give it to you as a token of my gratitude. Lucy suddenly stood up. That's why I said I'd give you that precious item. She was so angry she turned and walked away. Idiot. Seeing her run away, Ian panicked. Lucy. He was left behind, quietly watching her back. Maybe I was a bit too harsh. Right at that moment, someone approached. Mage. Bruno walked up to Ian. The Count has something to ask of you. The night was getting late. In a corner of the camp, Angry shouts rang out. If you don't want your heads hung up, get lost. You damn thieves. Otto looked arrogant and challenging. We should be the ones saying that. Just hand over 3 chickens, and we'll leave you alone. Helmet immediately pressed up against the man. We still have to go fight, understand? If we starve out here, how will we have any strength left, right? Suddenly, Otto's face turned pale. He panicked and pointed up at the tree branches. That crow, isn't it the one the mage keeps? Helmet looked thoughtfully. Now that you mention it. Suddenly, Oberon flapped its wings and squawked. Master is here. Caw. My master has arrived. Otto, Dieter, and Helmet's faces turned pale. What the hell? That damn crow can talk. Immediately, a voice called out from behind the 3 of them. Hey! Otto, Dieter, and Helmet turned green, trembling as they turned around. Ian walked over, frowning at the 3 men in front of him. What the hell are you guys doing? Under the flickering candlelight inside the tent, Katina spoke first with a serious expression. Ian, I have a favor to ask. He maintained his usual calm demeanor and asked, What is it? He coughed slightly, looking extremely hesitant. Ian looked at him, wondering. He looks like he's having a hard time speaking. What exactly is it? After some hesitation, Katina finally spoke up. I want you to stop the misconduct of the mercenaries in this town. Ian was surprised for a moment, then asked, Wouldn't knights be more suitable for that? He rubbed his fingers together, slowly explaining. Because knights and mercenaries are comrades. They often cover up each other's crimes and turn a blind eye. Of course, that's to maintain the mercenaries' morale. I could normally tolerate a certain level of coercion, but this is my niece's territory. I'm counting on you. As long as you give them a warning, the mercenaries will know their limits. Seeing Ian's dark expression, the 3 soldiers hugged each other, trembling. Seeing Ian's dark expression, the 3 soldiers hugged each other, trembling. He demanded coldly, daring to break into people's homes like robbers? Oberon, standing on his shoulder, chimed in, Punish. Ian slammed his staff hard on the ground. Warning, I will make an example out of you. Oberon eagerly followed up, Punish. The 3 men quickly apologized. We're sorry, Sir Mage. We'll repent. After that, Oberon and I just needed to catch a few of them. They were so scared they didn't dare show their faces outside. The mercenaries all hid in their houses, trembling and muttering, If we go out now, we're dead. The Count and Lucy were overjoyed to hear the news. But Bruno knelt down solemnly and reported, Lord Count, we have a serious problem. As a result, an unexpected problem arose. Bruno continued to explain, To the abuser of power, our army is no longer a threat. Ian immediately asked, Even though we have over 400 troops? He lowered his head and explained, Because our army is completely harmless. He repeated in confusion, Harmless? If the army had plundered the territory, the people here would have pressured Graham to stop the invasion long ago. Because Graham is controlling the Terrian territory. But thanks to our peaceful march, Graham has had time to gather his forces. Not to mention, since our army can act freely, morale has also dropped significantly. Ian rested his chin on his hand, thinking, It really has become a bizarre situation. Bruno looked up, his voice full of hesitation. My lord, will you allow the plundering to begin from now on? Katina tiredly rubbed his forehead. He slowly looked over at Ian, asking for his opinion. Mage, do you have any plan to handle this situation? Lucy, beside him, also looked at him with worried eyes. Ian's gaze sharpened. He rested his chin on his hand, thinking for a few seconds before speaking slowly. Well, it's not like we're completely out of options. Katina's eyes lit up as he urgently asked, What is it? Tell me quick. Lucy looked at him with pure admiration. You're amazing, Ian. In stark contrast to those 2, a few soldiers standing in the back clearly looked annoyed. Lucas muttered under his breath, This mage is so arrogant. Somewhere in the Terrian territory, Henrik violently shoved the door open, cursing in frustration. Shut up, you annoying crow. Ian's face suddenly loomed right in front of him, making him scream in shock. Henrik stumbled back a few steps and stammered, Who are you? Ian ignored the question and asked, Are you the owner of this wheat field? Still reeling from the shock, his voice trembled with panic. I asked who you are. A soldier behind him lost patience and cut in. This is the disciple of the great Mage Eredit, Sir Ian Eredit Raven. Hearing that name, Henrik's face instantly went pale. He dropped to his knees in a panic, begging, "I had no idea I was in the presence of someone so renowned. Please forgive my insolence." Ian shot him a sideways glance. He gritted his teeth and declared, "The wheat here is completely ruined." Henrik looked up in bewilderment. What do you mean by that?" Ian slammed his staff into the ground and shouted, "Can't you feel it? Dark energy has seeped into these fields. The soul of the first Baron of Tarion, the one whose land was unjustly stolen, is seething with rage." Trembling, with tears streaming down his face, he asked frantically, "Then what should I do?" Ian tapped his staff on the ground, furrowing his brows in warning. "Hold on. Silence." Suddenly, his eyes widened. Ian threw his hands toward the sky and declared dramatically, "The heavens are speaking. Only when Lucy Tarion inherits the title of Baron will this wrath be appeased. That is the only way. Oh my, there's an ominous dark energy over there too." The moment the words left his mouth, he bolted. The soldiers frantically called out and chased after him. "Sir Mage," he shouted as he ran. "To think this territory would fall to ruin because of such a tyrant." Sometime later, it seemed the rumors he spread had done their job. The people of Tarion began to harbor deep resentment toward Grimm. They demanded that Lucy take the throne to save them from the impending disaster. The furious mob relentlessly pelted Grimm's door with tomatoes. Thanks to this uprising, the morale of the Count's army skyrocketed. They marched straight toward Grimm's stronghold. Yet, amidst the triumphant atmosphere, Lucas stood in the distance, glaring at Ian with deep resentment. Back at the camp, Lucas stepped forward in protest. "Count, we refuse to fight on a battlefield stained with dishonor." Katina looked at him in confusion. "What do you mean?" Lucas immediately pointed the finger. "Ian has been spreading rumors that the territory is cursed. He's bringing disaster upon us. If we keep associating with a mage like him, our honor will be dragged through the mud." Ian looked at them, genuinely baffled, and explained, "The curse was just a lie. Why would you actually believe the rumors I made up?" The knights immediately erupted in fierce backlash. "We can't trust a single word that comes out of this mage's mouth." "Exactly. He's definitely trying to play us for fools." Ian watched the scene in silence, his eyes darkening as the realization hit him. In other words, since they have no way of telling fact from fiction, they just assume everything I say is a lie. How absurd. But the knights are the core vanguard of this war. The Count's expression makes it clear he knows that too. Without the knights, we can't even form a battle line. In the end, he has no choice but to side with them. Is there even a reason for me to stay here anymore? He looked at Katina's deeply conflicted expression. Ian finally broke the silence. "You don't need to worry, Count." He stood up abruptly, calling out to him. "Ian." Ian turned his back to leave, but made sure to leave them with a warning. "If my presence here makes you all that uncomfortable, I'll leave. But from now on, no matter what happens, don't even think about coming to me for help."